Good morning, Tim. Can you hear me? Oh, you're connecting. Morning, Tim.
Morning.
I'll defer to you on when you feel like we've reached a quorum. After that, I'll start the meeting.
Sounds really good. I have to get over the panicked feeling when I couldn't get on the Zoom. I have to recover. I hope everybody's doing well. Larry, I see the beard is going nicely.
There's no value anymore. It all comes in white. You got a little bit of color in yours, man.
Yeah, for a little while longer, maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's why they put that color stuff in the bottle. I think, Mr. Chair, I could do a quick roll call. It looks like we've got.
Yes, please proceed with the roll call. Thank you, Tim.
Honorable Kevin Mullen.
Megan Murray here for his staff.
Thank you, Megan. Honorable Rudy Salas.
Michael Dyer here for his staff.
Thanks, Michael. Honorable Ana Caballero. Honorable Canileva.
Here, Manny Saucedo, staff.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Cam, Amiri Davini. Cam, are you on?
I'm here.
Great. Mark Arabo. Bob Beitcher. Jamil Dada. Leanne Eager. I see you, Leanne.
Here.
Morning.
Morning.
Chairman Farouk is here. Mr. Falk. Dean, are you on? Mr. Gallo. Jason Hayter.
Here.
Hey, Jason. Chris Hill. Gary King, I see you, Gary. Good morning.
Yeah, I'm here. Tim, just one quick note. I'll have to jump off very briefly at 10:15, but I will be back.
You got it. Thank you for that. Hillary Lentini, are you on?
I am. My camera's not working, but I'm here. Good morning.
Good morning. Stephen Levy. Laura Long. Jim Mangia. People are still joining. I see Jamil Dada. Jim Mangia and Stephen Monteros. Stephen. Mr. Redlow. Nicole Rice. Annette Smith-Doring. Mr. Stensley.
I am here.
Hi, Mr. Stensley. Joseph Williams. I know he's coming. Gloria Young. John Brower. Diane Factor.
Present.
Hey, Diane.
I'm here.
Is that John? John Brower? You're here? Hi, John.
Yeah, I'm here, brother.
Rebecca Miller, I know you're here.
Hi,
I saw you. Hey, Rebecca. Mr. Riojas, I see you.
Sir.
Fabrizio, are you on?
I'm here, brother.
What's up?
Hey.
Mr. Jeremy Smith. Carol Zabin.
Hey there.
Hey, Carol. Leonard Gonzalez.
Here.
Leonard. Reverend Trammell. Mr. Frank in the house. Aveen can't make it. Jim Sunin, I saw you.
I'm here as designate for Dr. Mark Galley, Secretary of Health and Human Services Agency. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Jim. Director Signs. Rita
Here
Signs.
I am.
All right. Hi, Rita. Chancellor Oakley or Shenny?
Hey, good morning, Tim.
Abby, are you on for Secretary Sue?
Yes, I am, Tim.
Perfect. Honorable Tony Thurman.
Tim, Pete Dallas for Tony Thurman.
Establishing shared priorities. Yeah. Mr. Xavier, I saw you, Director Xavier.
Yeah, good morning, Tim.
We have such a solid quorum, Mr. Chair. We can get started, and I'll pick up members as they join as well.
Tim, I'm on too. Jamil Dada.
Hey, Jamil, I got you. And Joseph, I got you.
Tim, you've got Dean Phelps. Good morning.
Thank you, Dean.
And Morris Hill. Assemblymember Salas, I'm on too.
Oh, great. Nice to see you, Assembly Member.
Tim, you've got Bob Beecher here.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're delighted to see all of you again virtually, and hopefully we can start having in-person meetings soon as our safety conditions continue to improve. So great to see everyone. I also want to just give a note that I'm on location at the West Valley America Job Center in San Bernardino County, and grateful to Marlena Sessions, Executive Director for the County Workforce Development Department, and Barbara Martinez, our local AJCC manager, for hosting me. So thank you to both of you. And before we get started, I need to go over some critical notes for our meeting process for today. And if everyone else could please mute their microphones, I would appreciate that. The meeting is being conducted on the Zoom platform. Only board members and staff are on the Zoom meeting. The public can view this meeting via live stream on our Workforce Development YouTube page. A link to the YouTube page, the meeting agenda, and board packet information can be found on the CWDB webpage page at cwdb.ca.gov under State Board Meetings and Archives. A recording of this meeting will stay on our State Workforce YouTube page. There is a slight delay between the Zoom meeting and the live stream of our YouTube page, which is approximately 20 to 30 seconds. Public comment is now open and will be accepted via email at boardpubliccomment@cwdb.ca.gov. All emails will be read aloud during the public comment periods noted on the agenda and will be included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. The first public comment is on 3 action items: approval of the January 27th board meeting summary, the local area designation, and the local board certification. Who has that? Tim, is that something you have?
Yes.
Okay, I'll defer to you on reading that then, please.
So we are going to take, as the chair said, we're going to take both these separate action items as one action. And I'll quickly walk through what the action is. Federal law requires that the governor designate local workforce areas within state.
Tim, my apologies. Right now, I'm just speaking about that there was a public comment on this item. We haven't gotten to that part yet. Is there a public comment on those items?
Sounds like no public comment, Mr. Chair.
I'll just finish real quick and then we'll get, board members.
My apologies.
No, sorry, it's okay. Board members will be on mute until recognized by myself. To request to speak, please type speak into the chat function in Zoom. And I will be happy to recognize you. You can also type questions into the chat and we will try to get to those as well. Please note that anything that is typed in the Zoom chat box will be included in the meeting minutes as part of the public record. We will now proceed to the action items, and I'll turn it over to Tim. Sorry about that earlier, Tim.
No, it's okay. Senator Caballero, welcome. Great to see you. Are there any other board members that I didn't call out? Mr. Redlow, I think we...
I'm here.
All right, good news.
And Tim, I had some trouble getting in, sorry.
It's okay. And Tim, just to note that the meeting summary, January 27th, that'll be the first item, and then we'll get to the local area and board action items.
You got it.
Hi, Tim. It's Steve. I had trouble getting in too.
Thank you, Steve. Gotcha.
And Tim, this is Nicole Rice. I had the similar problem, so I'm here. Thanks.
Apologies for that. Yeah, thank you, Nicole.
Ditto here.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we can take a motion, entertain a motion on the January 27th meeting summary. The meeting summary starts on page 4 of the agenda packet. Are there any public comments related to this topic or any questions or discussion? Okay, we can entertain a motion to approve the meeting summary minutes.
Move approval. Jamil.
Motions to approve.
Did you get a second?
Joseph seconds it.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Are there any? Thank you. Are there any abstentions or no's?
I will abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay. Thank you, Leanne. That's noted. Okay. We will now move to consider the approval of recommendations for local area subsequent designation, approve recommendations for local board recertification. We can take these together as a single action. The executive committee approved this at our May 11th meeting. If the full board approves, it goes to Secretary Sue for final action on behalf of Governor Newsom. The summary of the action items start on page 12 of the agenda packet. Tim and Marissa can briefly describe the proposed actions, and I'll turn it over to Tim, and then we'll get to the questions from John and others afterwards.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for jumping ahead. To rewind just a bit, as the chair said, we'll take the items together as one action. Federal law requires that the governor designate local areas in the state, local workforce areas. Every state has the same requirement. California has 45 local workforce areas. Federal law also requires that the governor certify one local workforce board per local area. So 45 local areas, 45 local workforce boards. These are both 2-year certifications. So upon approval, local area designation and local board recertification are effective July 1, 2021, coming up soon, to June 30, 2023. To be redesignated very quickly, if you have deeper questions, we can field those. To be redesignated, a local area must perform successfully on its WIOA performance measures, sustained fiscal integrity, and we have a definition for that, and engage in regional planning, the process of regional planning. To be recertified, a local workforce board must have also performed successfully. It's the same performance, sustained fiscal integrity, and then met the membership requirements for the composition of the local workforce board as set in federal and state law. Those requirements for board composition are 51% business. State law also requires 15% of board members must be representatives of labor organizations nominated by local labor federation, a local labor federation. Other required members are the representatives of all of federal WIOA titles, Wagner-Pizer, vocational rehabilitation, adult education. Also requires a representative from higher education, such as a community college, and then local economic development. So the recommended action, EDD and the board are actually asking for 3 recommendations from you. And as the chair stated, once you approve, then it goes to the Secretary of Labor for final approval on behalf of the governor. The executive committee has already approved this and moved it on to you. So the 3 recommendations are: number 1, full approval of the redesignation of all 45 local workforce areas in the state. And these are listed in your packet. Number 2 is full approval of recertification of 42 local boards, and those are listed in your packet. So not all 45 local boards, 42 of the local boards we're recommending for full approval. The third is a conditional approval of recertification for 3 local workforce boards, with full approval upon submission of WIOA compliant and state compliant board rosters, which we're still getting from 3 workforce boards. And once we've gotten those compliant rosters from those 3 workforce boards, the Secretary of Labor will fully approve those boards. And those are also listed in your packet. So the 4 that we're still waiting for those rosters on, and it takes a while to get people appointed from whoever the local elected official is who has the appointing authority. So it takes a little time to get this done. They're working on it. Those 3 are Contra Costa, Humboldt, and Orange County. So we expect those to come in really soon. And that is the action before you.
Thank you for that context, Tim. I'll take a question from John Brower. John,
I saw 4 listed in that section 3 and only saw 3 there. So I was wondering if it's only 3. And then my question is that for those, Tim, they just haven't submitted to you a roster, or is there an issue with what they've submitted to you? It sounds like they haven't submitted it yet. Is that just the issue at this point?
Marissa may be able to clarify. So it is 3 local workforce boards who still haven't sent us the compliant roster. And I don't know, maybe Marissa knows exactly what's missing from those rosters. Marissa, are you on?
Okay. The one in particular I'm interested in is Orange County, because at times they have historically had some trouble around those submissions in the past. So that's the one I'm kind of wondering about in particular.
I can jump in. Good morning, everyone. So I think the 4 to 3 was a oopsie on our part. When we brought it to the executive team, there was a 4th one who was missing, I think, a Wagner-Pizer seat. And in between the executive meeting and now, they actually submitted it. So that is why they came off of it. And we just forgot to update that. So apologies. I believe all 3, it was just missing a business rep. So as Tim said, they had submitted their roster, but anytime you do kind of a point in time submission, people kind of fluctuate in and out. And I believe all 3 just had to get a final business rep on to meet those statutory requirements.
And I think Fabrizio also had a comment or question.
Yeah, Tim, you had mentioned that there's a recertification of 42 workforce boards, but in our packet it says 41. I didn't know if that was a typo.
Yeah, I think it's back to what Marissa pointed out, that we didn't quite update the packet, but the only 3 that are left out of the 45 are those, the Contra Costa, Humboldt, and Orange County. So apologies for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Are there any public comments related to this agenda item? Tim, are you the one monitoring, or who do I refer to? Are there any public comments?
For public comment? Clemente?
There are no public comments at this time.
Yeah, no public comments as of this morning.
Okay, for this item. Okay, thank you. We will then entertain a motion.
Leanne Eager, so moved.
Thank you, Leanne. Any second?
Joe. Data Science, second it.
Joe, second. Joe Xavier, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Are there any abstentions or noes? Okay, the motion carries. We will now proceed to our updates and discussion portion of our agenda, beginning with our staffing update with Curtis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Good morning, Curtis Notzena with the Workforce Development Board. There are updates listed in your board packet. It's item 3A. On page 16 of the packet, we did have one departing member of the staff, Amy Velasquez, and we have a number of new team members to the board in our policy, ledge, and research branch. Wanted to welcome Pradeep Raju. A lot of you know him. He is the new deputy director of that branch, of the branch for the state board. Many of you know him. He was represented the superintendent of public instruction on this board. We're very welcome to have him and his experience here at the state board. Also, we have a new Cal Skills technical lead, PK Gonvindan Kudi, and also Sherry Mung recently joined us as our statewide partnerships manager in our program branch. We have a number of new team members we want to welcome. Allison Tanz is coming in as a program manager for HRTP. Many of you know her also, having worked in Humboldt County Workforce Development Board there as a director. Bruce Lee Vong is a program analyst for AB 1111. Jennifer Tao is a new program analyst for AB 1111. Shamima Akhtar is a new program analyst for High Road Construction Careers. D'Angelo Jenkins is a new program analyst for RPI, and Tila Lier is a new program analyst for High Road Training Partnerships. Again, these are also listed in your board packet, but wanted to provide you with an update and welcome our new team members.
Thank you for that update, Curtis, and congratulations and welcome to everyone joining us on our team. We will now proceed to our Washington, D.C. update, and we are very fortunate to have an update from the U.S. Department of Labor. I want to welcome and introduce Annie Leonetti, Deputy Regional Administrator for Region 6 of the U.S. Department of Labor. Annie, are you available now?
Mr. Chair, she is on by phone. Annie, you may have to press *6 to unmute by phone.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you. Please proceed.
All right. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I don't know. Here we are, 16 months into this remote world that we've been living in, and I'm still having technology problems. So I apologize for joining you guys a little bit late today and only being able to join my phone and then not be able to get off mute. So I'm learning still. I want to say hello and thank you all for having us on the call today, giving me this opportunity to be on the call. I've met a few of you, but most of you I have not, so wanted to just introduce myself briefly. I am Annie Leonetti. I'm the Deputy Regional Administrator for both our San Francisco and Dallas regional offices. In ETA, we have currently what we call just a paired structure, where we have a common regional administrator between our Dallas and San Francisco offices. That shouldn't mean a lot for you or have a lot of impact for you guys. You will still have your same primary points of contact in our San Francisco office, your same federal projects officer, your same division chief, and everybody that you've been working with from our team in San Francisco remains the same. But in that role, I'm primarily in our San Francisco office, but I also end up with some duties in our Dallas office. So if my title is at all confusing, that's what that's about. It's an administrative leadership within the Department of Labor, and should not affect you guys and the services that you receive in the state. So I am joining you today on behalf of our regional administrator, Nick Glaupius, who is on leave this afternoon, well, this afternoon his time in Dallas. And so I'm joining you on his behalf, also on behalf of the Employment Training Administration as a whole and the U.S. Department of Labor. So good to meet you all. I hope to sometime be able to join you in person, but maybe next year. I wanted to say hello, and I just wanted to give you a few updates, things that we're working on in ETA or looking at currently. So believe it or not, it's already time to start thinking about our 2022-2023 state plans, WIOA state plans. These are the 2-year updates to the 4-year plans that were submitted last year. So you want to start thinking about your economic and labor market analysis and strategies, what has changed since spring of 2020, and a lot of the world has changed in the last year. So you may have some different strategies in place. You want to start thinking about those things. We are encouraging you to begin preparing now for these 2-year mods to the plans. we know that you have your own clearance process, so of course you'll need to start this process pretty soon for your public comment clearance process, but we want to start thinking about them now. The WIOA State Plan portal has recently deployed a search tool that is available on the WIOA plans.ed.gov website that hopefully you are all familiar with. And that tool is really intended for use by the public workforce system, but also the general public and other stakeholders so that they can search for topics of interest combined within the published plans. So just to know that that is there and available, you can also take a look at plans for other states as well, if that helps you to think about things, to see what other states are working on. It's an excellent resource for identifying new ideas and promising practices that you can adopt or adapt for use in California. And it's a tool, it's a search feature that we're excited about because it should hopefully make this really easy for anyone to compare strategies and approaches. So we encourage you to take a look at that tool, but also just in general to start thinking about your two-year modification that should be coming in next spring. So it's already time to start planning for that. Another thing is we have we are seeking public comments on workforce and reemployment technology systems. So in the May 24th Federal Register, you can find the full context of this public comment period request. It's a 60-day public comment period that closes July 23rd. And we are seeking public comment on customer-centric solutions that can assist states in the design and deployment of affordable, flexible technology systems that will help to improve workforce development and reemployment service delivery at the local level. We are doing this in collaboration with our WIOA partner agencies, and we will use this information to help inform our deliberations on the implementation of WIOA and technical assistance that we provide to you guys, to the states, to help you align technology and data systems across all of your one-stop partner programs and align them with the customer experience. So if you have not seen that in the May 24th Federal Register, we encourage you to take a look at that, and we are seeking public comments. The last thing that I would mention that's going on right now that I would draw your attention to is that we will be conducting a monitoring review of EDD's WIOA Title I and Title III Wagner-Peiser formula grants. Our primary focus for this monitoring review will be on state and local governance, as articulated in WIOA, the TEGLs that we have put out, as well as your state and local policy and grant agreements. So sorry, I have a puppy that is wanting to chime in. This will take place over 2 weeks. It will be the last week of July and first week of August. The last time we did a review in California, I believe was September of 2018, and we were, of course, in person at that time. At this point in time, we are not doing in-person reviews, so we will be doing what we call an enhanced desk monitoring review, or EDMR, which just means it's a virtual monitoring review. We'll be, as I said, focusing on governance and looking at additional aspects of service delivery and implementation so that we can really achieve a full understanding of the workforce system. So I think those are our primary updates out of the Department of Labor and out of our San Francisco ETA office in particular. I would just add one thing, like we are we consider California one of our biggest partners, and you are our biggest state, not just in our region, but in the country. So we rely very closely on a good partnership with you guys, and as we are now moving into a very new world of work as we're all exploring and learning about what return to work is going to look like, or as somebody even said yesterday, it's not so much return to work, it's more return to office, return to workplaces, because a lot of work has been continued to be done over the last 16 months. But as things are opening back up in states, California is often a leader in all of these activities, and we really value your partnership, and we look forward to working with you, as that's probably the biggest focus on all of our minds at the Department of Labor right now is what the future of work will be and what the world of work is going to look like moving forward. And so we are here to support you, but we also look forward to partnering with you and learning from you guys. California is often a leader in many things, and this is one of those places that you already have been doing a lot of work, and we look forward to continuing to work closely with you. So really appreciate the opportunity to join your meeting today and to speak with you today. And I think that's probably more time than I was supposed to take. So I don't know if anybody has any questions, and otherwise it was great to meet you all, and thanks for letting me join.
Thank you so much, Annie. We really value our partnership with you and our U.S. Department of Labor counterparts, and really grateful for all of your leadership and in this time and this transition. Does anybody have any questions for our Deputy Regional Administrator, Annie Leonetti? Okay, thank you.
Annie, we look forward to that government monitoring of the State Workforce Board.
I look forward to it. I appreciate that, but I know that it is something we do hope that those are really valuable activities for everybody involved. So not sure if everybody always looks forward to them, but I hope they're valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you. We absolutely acknowledge that. And before I move on to other topics, I know Jamil Dada, if you're available, I know you are always plugged in at the national level. If there's any other federal updates that you'd like to share with the board before we proceed. Okay, that's okay. So we will move on now to our governor's proposed state budget. And so, as I'm sure you guys have heard, Governor Newsom's May revision to his 2021-22 budget is called the California Comeback Plan. The aim of the governor's bold economic recovery plan is to help California emerge from the pandemic stronger than before. As you well know, the coronavirus pandemic has had far-reaching negative impacts on our state's economy, but it has particularly hit disproportionately low-income workers and our most vulnerable populations. State lawmakers have until June 15th, and I know we have a few here, joining us right now, to make changes to it and vote on it. And I want to note that recovery does not mean returning to the same economic inequities and injustices of the past. For us, it means building a future high road economy that's defined by quality jobs and equity. So for our part, the State Workforce Board is driving a high road agenda, including investing in industry-based high road training partnerships. So Aida is going to speak more to this under the initiative updates. And I'm going to turn it over. Well, Tim will provide details actually on what's in the budget related to our work specifically. So I'll turn it over to Tim now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and want to welcome Senator Leyva. Thanks for joining us, Senator. So the governor's proposed budget, the California Comeback Plan, there is a section, jobs and economic resilience. It's a package of items, and it's over $1 billion in the budget in the May revise. For the State Workforce Development Board, that is $265 million in general fund monies that'll come to the State Workforce Board to invest over 5 years. And I'll just run through those quick components for the State Workforce Board. $115 million for high road training partnerships and high road construction careers to expand that work. As you'll recall, in the last budget, January, there was $25 million approved. So the comeback plan adds an additional $90 million to that. And we expanded from 5 target sectors to 10 target sectors. And those include trade and logistics, manufacturing, energy and utilities, information technology, forestry and agriculture. Hospitality was added in there at the request of Senator Durazo from Los Angeles. Property services, education, and construction, also called high road construction careers. The other item for the State Workforce Board is $50 million in high road training partnerships and high road construction careers in collaboration with the community colleges. So a number of high road training partnerships and high road construction careers across the state include colleges as partners. So this work and this investment will help strengthen the college's roles in those existing projects and will help us expand new partnerships and new high road training partnership projects and high road construction careers projects over the next 5 years. The third is another $50 million for regional equity and recovery partnerships. So this is for competitive grants. This is all competitive grants for local workforce boards and regional community college consortia to implement regional plans that they've been working on together for several years. Regional planning is required by federal law. The state of California has a number of regional planning units, and within those local workforce boards and community colleges partner in identifying industry sectors that are driving employment and then aligning workforce programs to create strong pathways to those for people who most need good jobs. So that $50 million will expand that work, really focus on implementation of those regional plans. That's the Regional Equity and Recovery Partnership bucket. And I'll add that the deeper sector work that we're going to drive through this investment in partnership with locals and regions will pay close attention to our high road standards that we talk about at our board meetings of quality jobs and equity. The next is $20 million for the State Workforce Board for housing workforce apprenticeships. So this builds on high road construction careers in the state. We have a high road construction careers partnership in every corner of California that is creating access to state approved apprenticeship for people who have traditionally not had access to state approved apprenticeship. So that's going to work on largely public works investments, but in this case, it would be affordable housing. So that's that piece. So as the state invests in expanding affordable housing and low-income housing, this is going to create new opportunities for people to get good middle-class jobs in the trades. So we're excited about that. The next one is $15 million for shared data infrastructure with the community college's chancellor's office. So we have shared partners, and we're going to be looking at collecting and analyze participant data across our workforce system to really improve the alignment of programs that are out in the field, doing the good work of creating equity and connecting people to good quality jobs. This will build on our Cal Skills work and also work that is done at the community colleges. So we're excited about that. And then finally, $15 million that is just committed to the California Workforce Development Board's expanded staff capacity. So this, you may have noticed, is a pretty significant increase in the State Workforce Board's work and budget. It's tripling, in fact, the work of the State Workforce Board. So we're going to at least try to double the size of the staff to keep up with that workload, because it's not replacing work. It's on top of everything that we already do. It's mostly expansion. Well, it is all expansion of existing work. So this is, I think, a reflection of the great work of you guys, the board, you all, and the staff of the State Workforce Board and our partners, that there's recognition that this is important work and it deserves investment in order to ensure a just recovery. I'll add a couple of other pieces that make up that $1 billion investment in this jobs plan. The employment training panel is set to receive, potentially if everything is approved, $92 million in general fund. That's $50 million for expanded employment training panel work. That's largely focused on incumbent workers, almost exclusively on incumbent workers. So working with companies and multiple companies across the state to upskill workers inside those companies. And then another $42 million for the employment training panel in collaboration with the community colleges. So that's really important to, again, be building the system of multiple components. And then finally, the Community Economic Resilience Fund, in good California fashion, the acronym is CERF. That's $750 million in federal ARPA funds to be administered by the Workforce Services branch of the Employment Development Department. The ARPA is the American Rescue Plan Act signed by President Biden in March. So this work is going to be co-designed and developed by a governance committee of the Labor and Workforce Development Agency, the Office of Planning and Research, and GoBiz together. It's distinct and consistent. It's distinct but consistent but consistent with, I'm still working on enough coffee. With the workforce elements I just described, a problem statement that we've talked about at the State Workforce Board is that it's central to equitable recovery, is there are not enough good quality jobs for the people in California who need good quality jobs. So SURF is about investing in inclusive regional economic planning and development, focused on increasing the number of good quality jobs across the state, as well as economic and climate resilience. That's the focus of the $750 million. The high road training components are complementary because they're creating the industry-based partnerships that can pull people into those good jobs that we create with the SURF investment, and into jobs that are emerging, especially as California invests in the state's infrastructure and builds toward that carbon neutral future. So as you'll see, if you look at the governor's proposed budget, the comeback plan, there's significant investment across multiple categories in terms of infrastructure, housing, as I talked about, but a commitment to increasing low-income housing in the state of California, affordable housing, transportation, also advanced energy, broadband, natural resources. So as we invest in infrastructure, we're creating the pathways to those good quality jobs. This will go out in a couple of phases. I think the first, and this is all to be developed by this governance committee, the specifics of how this will roll out. But generally, there would be a first round of funding, $29 million to do sort of development work, followed by implementation grants with the balance of the fund. That is it, Mr. Chair, for updates on the budget items related to us.
Thank you, Tim. And that's an extraordinary, historic commitment to workforce from this administration. Do you think, could you speak to regarding childcare for parents so that they can access these trainings? What options there are related to that in the proposed budget?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I also wanted to open it up to Abby Snay, who's with the Labor and Workforce Development Agency, and Shania Weber, who's on for the Chancellor's office, to add anything that I might have missed or some texture to this. We do have, Mr. Chair, just speaking from the investments through the State Workforce Development Board, a category in education that'll be focused on early childhood education and investing in high road training partnerships that expand that develops the skills of providers of early child education, but it also expands that so that as we invest in early childhood education, we're going to have the capacity in terms of skills and talent out there to provide those services. Absolutely.
And we'll shift it to Abby and Shani in a moment. I just want to make sure that the questions related to you are answered. Bob, do you have a question for Tim?
I do. Thank you. Tim, I love everything that I'm hearing, and it's amazing how much money is going to go towards all these things. Coming out of the pandemic, one of the real critical labor issues in our state is going to be healthcare workers. Mm-hmm. If you've followed all the statistics, they have dropped out of the workforce, and at a time when we need even more than we had previously. Is there any money going into developing the healthcare workers and adding to that workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. The high road training partnerships, $115 million that I talked about at the very top. There is a category for healthcare, so it's a target sector. We'll have $15 million that's just dedicated to high road training partnerships in healthcare with the largest healthcare providers in the state. We currently invest in a high road partnership among United Healthcare Workers West and a number of healthcare providers in the state. So we plan to expand that. And there are other proposed investments that aren't even in this package that I think may come through. There's another organization at the state level. The acronym is OSHPED, Office of Health Planning. That's in Health and Human Services. Maybe Jim Suni can talk about that a little bit. But there's pretty significant investment there also to expand the healthcare workforce, retraining, but also bringing people back.
Great.
Tim, I can jump in if that's okay, and just add some more information to Bob's question. Tim had mentioned I can identify at least two other opportunities for supporting healthcare training in these budget investments. One is through the what will be $100 million in community college partnerships to build high road training. And I think those are likely to reflect needs, as you mentioned, for more healthcare workers. So I think there will be opportunities there for training. And the $50 million in general fund dollars going to the employment training panel will be general fund dollars that will be less restrictive in eligibility of employers for ETP funding. And as you may know, many large healthcare systems are either public or large nonprofits or university-based and are not eligible for the regular ETP funding. So I think this could open up more avenues for training for healthcare workers through ETP.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Bob. Abby, is there anything else you want to elaborate on overall? And we're very grateful for your leadership in the labor agency.
I think Tim covered it really well, Angelo. And a little bit later, when I talk about the future of work recommendations, I want to make some connections to the budget requests there as well.
Perfect. I want to give a chance for our colleague, Sheni Weber from the Community College Chancellor's Office, if there's anything you want to add, Sheni.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add a couple things. The $42 million in the ETP funding in collaboration with the California Community Colleges, that really is important to also allow us to train employees for small businesses. That's a very big focus of ETP training that we provide for our system. And so we're very excited about that. And also, I believe there's some flexibility in also helping small businesses with new hires and skilling and upskilling. So that's a very exciting piece. But I also want to take a moment to really thank Abby and Tim for their collaboration and for their support. When we started these discussions, I know that I've been a great admirer of the HRTP model, and really grateful that Tim has embraced us and sort of are willing to work hand in hand and help us also be part of this HRTP collaboration and bringing our colleges and our practices up along those lines and aligning them when we do regional partnerships. And so I really appreciate the collaboration partnership, and also want to mention my thanks to Reg Javier as well with the employer training panel. So thank you guys, you're all excellent and amazing folks to work with.
Thank you for sharing all that, Sheni. And I just want to acknowledge Assembly Member Rudy Salas. Thank you for sharing some of the proposals and outlining them in the chat box. And Jim, thank you for sharing that link also regarding the OSHPD statewide health and planning and department. Manny from Senator Leva's team.
Hey, Angelo, just quick question for you or Tim. Our office has received a few calls from some of our local chambers. And one of the questions that they're asking is they're looking for workforce development training dollars. So they're looking at how they could partner with the statewide workforce development board or even with our office. I know there's dollars for the local ROPs. There's dollars for some of our local community colleges, some of our local WIBs, but wanted to see how we could partner with some of our local chambers if there's any opportunities to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Manny. We'd be really happy if you wanted to set something up to come and talk to folks in your district about the High Road Training Partnership and the Employment Training Panel funds and how they could get involved in those partnerships. Would love to do that.
Perfect. Yeah, we would love to do that.
Yeah, anything for you and Senator Leva.
And Senator Leva is here as well. So strong representation from Team Leva. And so Bob and Manny, both of your hand requests are up. I'm assuming that your questions were addressed then? Okay.
Yes.
You. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay. We will.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Couldn't get to my button fast enough. This is Nicole Rice.
Sure, Nicole.
I just wanted to know, are there any updates related to the consolidation of the various departments into the Workforce Development Department? I'm going to call it that. But wanted to know if you had any updates on that front, Tim.
We do, yes. Tim can elaborate on that.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole, for asking. It's still proposed in the budget, and the intention is that the state still does build the new department, and I'll call it that as well. One of the recommendations that's coming from the legislative side is to change the name, and also put some guardrails in there in terms of high road training partnership language, so we can make sure that over time the new department is moving in the right direction. But it's still the right thing to do. It's still the right policy, because at the state level, we have to walk the talk. We have to have more integrated programs, and we have to have those governed by a single vision around what the workforce system should look like and where we're going, because we can't rely just on the locals to do that. It's not fair. So we got to get our house in order to make a system better integrated. So that's still in the budget. That's still the intention.
Great. Well, if I can just take another 30 seconds for a comment. It's good to hear that that's still moving forward. Still very supportive of that consolidation and that movement in that direction. And given all the additional expansions that we're going to be able to do with some of the funding that's proposed in the budget, I think it is imperative that we make sure we have a framework to fit those expanded activities in, so we can make sure that we check all the boxes and don't miss any opportunities. So thanks for that, Tim.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're going to proceed to our initiative updates. And so we have several critical initiatives of our board, and we're going to do a quick round. We'll do this by branch and take all questions and comments at the very end. So we're going to begin with our high road field team updates with Aida Cardenas.
Hi, good morning, good late morning, everyone. So I'll try to be brief and try to address also some of the comments that came up. But since our last convening, last board meeting, we did have our High Road Summit, which we feel was a great success. We had over 500 folks registered, and we had 413 of those attend the event, the general sessions. We had 5 breakout sessions where we took a deeper dive and learned more about the partnerships in the different areas. And those sessions were, the first one was on high road construction careers. The second was addressing workforce equity gaps in the Inland Empire. Third was frontline service workers and reclaiming our value. Fourth was job quality and equity in energy and transportation. And finally, we had High Road to Food and Forests. I will add that, and I'll add that to the link, that the sessions were recorded, both the general sessions and the breakout sessions. And so we have those on the website on our summit page. So if anybody is interested, wasn't able to join and want to learn more, those are available. We had a very diverse group of stakeholders participate, from elected leaders to employers to stakeholders involved in the partnerships, state agencies, and philanthropy, community-based organizations, labor, and other groups. So we got some really good feedback from our survey. The highlight seemed to be really having it centered around workers and the impact it makes for them. So that was the feedback that we got. And again, the recordings are available if folks weren't able to attend. We had over 40 speakers and panelists. So it was great to have the participation and leadership from practitioners on the field, and also representing employers, representing labor, local boards, some colleges as well, and other stakeholders and environmental justice organizations. I'll also add that since the last quarterly board meeting, we expanded to an additional 11 HRTPs and 8 high road construction careers, totaling $14.5 million. And this was the remainder of the greenhouse gas reduction fund money that we had the first year of funding. So that is all out. And I wanted to just share real quick with you, let's see if I do this right. Beginning. You know, these were the infamous 8 demonstration projects of HRTP that the State Workforce Development Board back in 2017 decided to use some WIOA discretionary funds to invest in work that was happening that was really addressing the needs and had these labor management partnerships. And so from these projects, we really developed, sort of learned the DNA of what made this work. I will also add that the evaluation of this demonstration project is also available and out, done by the UCLA Labor Center. They spend literally years working with the projects, learning from the projects, and have produced the evaluation of this initiative and this work. Going into this year, the end of 2020 and 2021, in a very, very challenging year, we have been able to expand our portfolio of high road training partnerships. You can see we really looked at how we can address and look at investing in other regions, learning from the field, learning from conversations with whether it's industry groups, labor groups, environmental justice groups. Again, this is all funded through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, so it has its set of requirements. So we also looked at how do we target green industries or industries impacted by climate, or looking at introducing electric bus manufacturing and what that means to energy and storage, energy storage and microgrids, and just doing a lot of learning on different industry needs. And so these are this is our current portfolio. And I'll also add that we've also developed short one-pagers that we also added to our website on each of the projects, just so if folks want to learn more. Again, most of these are just finalized getting their contract in place, so they're just starting their work. Some of them are doing the planning, some of them are building their infrastructure, and some of them are already training. So as you can see, it's a pretty diverse portfolio, but the goal is to really learn from these projects the way that we did from the first 8 and continue to expand and solidify the work. And then I'll also share the map of the high road construction careers. This folks may be more familiar with because it's been happening for a longer period of time. Each partnership in each region is also at a different place in terms of its history of partnership. So working very closely with these regions to ensure that they have the support that they need. As you heard, the expansion of the work and the signals that we're getting in terms of, from the budget, we want to make sure that we're thoughtful about how we put out those resources and those investments. We want to make sure that this is really building resiliency within industries, right? We want resilient industries, strong industries. We want a resilient workforce, right? That continues to advance and have a career path. And build strong communities. And to do that, when we talk about the high road model, the HRTP side, the TP side is the part that I want to really emphasize, which is that training partnership. And I think that's really important to note that it's that training partnership, and it's not just coming to the table together, it's really building out an infrastructure that allows for worker voice, for worker agency, for really addressing what the needs are of the industry in the moment, in the now, but also looking at where the industry is going in the future to be able to be prepared for that. So building those partnerships out and having those infrastructures, it takes time, it takes relationship building, it takes trust building. And as we also move, I also want to add that of our 24 HRTPs, 12 of those are engaged with local workforce boards, and over 10 of those are either engaged or seeking engagement with the community colleges. So we're really looking at how to use the projects to help support and make alignment with all of these resources and the way that really workforce should be happening. But currently we have a field team of 5 to help understand what the needs are in the different industries and also provide technical support to the partnerships. We're moving into doing communities of practice and knowledge sharing amongst practitioners in partnership with UC Berkeley Labor Center. So those convenings have happened. But I think I'll end there. I had a few other things to up. Well, I'll just do one more, which is yesterday we, some of the more mature or experienced projects, some of the ones from our original 8, presented at the Labor and Employment Relations Association conference. And there's definitely some national interest around this model, inquiries from other states, wanting to learn how the California Workforce Development Board took on this initiative and what the steps were. So I think we'll definitely be hearing more from other states and looking at this model nationally. And certainly we still have so much work to still do here in California, but we're excited to have the opportunity to expand our resources and our teams, right, to provide that support in the field to help build out these partnerships in the way that it should be done without losing the values and elements that we fought so hard to have.
If I can just add real quick, Mr. Chair, the Hospitality Training Academy, one of our original higher ed training partnerships, was just awarded a national award from the National Association of Workforce Boards, and we'll be picking that up this week. The Hospitality Training Academy won the W.O. Lawton Award from the National Association of Workforce Boards. So nice national recognition of the work.
Thank you, Tim. And I'll just piggyback on that too, is I know the U.S. Department of Labor has been in touch with our staff about our high road training partnerships. It's really a national model of excellence. So thank you so much, Aida, for that great update. And we'll take all the questions at the end, but they're noted. So our next update is program implementation. Joelle Hurst.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm just going to briefly touch on all the programs that we put funding out for this year. So the regional plan implementation, those were awarded in February. That's covered all 15 RPUs in the state, totaling $4.9 million. The most recently awarded initiative is the Workforce Accelerator Fund 9.0. Those went out in May and are beginning this month with their program. That is a total of $7.3 million and 21 projects. Aida covered the high road training partnership and high road construction careers, but to break it down a little bit, we did put out the $15 million, which is the first 3 years of SB1 funding. That went out early in 2020. And then we did all the greenhouse gas funds, the HRTP and HRCC. And then we also have the Department of Education grant, which is 5 projects. 4 of them are HRTP and 1 HRCC. And that was another $14 million. And then lastly, Prison to Employment and the AB 1111 Breaking Barriers Initiative. Both of those are in their final year and will be closing out. So that's just an overview of where we are right now. And I just wanted to put out there that I'm happy to go further into some of these initiatives at future board meetings if that's the desire of this board. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joelle. We'll take our last update from Pradeep before taking questions regarding policy, legislation, and research.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Just a few items to cover for the policy, research, and legislation branch. I'll start with the Just Transition Roadmap for California. On labor agencies' behalf, the CWDB worked with the Governor's Office of Planning and Research to host online workshops, that is on May 25th, 27, to hear from the public about their interests, concerns, recommendations for just transition. Target audiences included organized labor, business, NGOs, local boards, economic development associations, and local government. Those were very successful. There were, I think, over 300 individuals that participated in those three workshops. And the next steps for that would be the OPR will take the lead on drafting the Just Transitions Roadmap document and then would release it for public comment in July. Following, once that roadmap is released, they'll be organizing a series of public engagement activities, mainly workshops, probably in the late summer. These may be broken out into the 5 events, one focused on each of the 5 elements of just transition: economic diversification, industrial planning, safety net update, workforce development, and regional partnerships. The board is also undertaking evaluation of the AJCCs and they have contracted with the Corporation of Skilled Workforce and the Ray Marshall Center at the University of Texas, Austin, to conduct an external evaluation. Quantitative data has been delivered to the external evaluators for analysis, and it was delivered probably a week ago, and they're just starting to do their analysis. And at the next board meeting, we may have some additional information. The evaluation is taking both a qualitative and a quantitative approach. For quantitative data, it includes participant information, services received, and outcomes. For qualitative, series of interviews with selected AJCCs about the administration, funding, investment, and service provision choices. Interviews and focus groups with individuals at different positions within the AJCCs, as well as obtaining information from users of the system. In addition, interviews will be performed with Workforce Development Board directors in all local areas. CWA is the California Workforce Association is conducting initial interviews, focusing mainly on costs and finances, with the Corporation of Skilled Workforce to follow with operations and management. Overall, the aim of the evaluation is to determine how the mixing and matching of different types of service provision choices impacts the performance and outcomes of AJCCs. The evaluation is expected to be completed by March 2022. High road evaluation work, working with across all of the branches within CWDB. The aim is to develop processes to align HRTP program and field work with the evaluation work. Case in point would be the completed data guides that have been produced for different grantees, and those have been complete and are available to the grantees. Also working with the field team, AIDA's team, to streamline the process for how to get access to the qualitative information that HRTPs possess. Example, case notes and quarterly reports. We're also beginning to think about research projects on the accelerator that would tell the story. A similar effort was completed a month ago about a request from the governor's office on AB 1111 and P2E grants. And we're also starting to discuss with Credential Engine to set in place an open, linked, and transparent system to house all credentials offered through the many grants that CW manages, and then particularly focused on HRTP. With the Cal Skills effort, the Cal Skills team is actively working on finalizing the requirements for a web portal development for the public to access. Discussions are continuing with outside consultant to move Cal Skills to the cloud. Purpose here is to have the data more accessible to different types of levels and users. Draft architecture to migrate Cal Skills infrastructure to the cloud is complete. The California Policy Lab has delivered a draft report on the initial data analysis that they conducted, and it is currently being reviewed by the staff at the board. After a series of presentations to CalSCIL partners, a final report will be produced in August 2021. The branch is also under Marissa's leadership. We're looking at Friday, June 4th, was a deadline to pass bills out of their house of origin. We're still tracking approximately 20 bills by the governor's office and providing technical assistance on that when needed. Other things just to add to this, the AB 1111 and P2E interim reports are almost complete. In fact, I just hot off the press got the draft report, and we'll start reviewing that internally first before it goes on to agencies. For P2E, we're working on a hiring event at the Solana State Prison with P2E partners. That probably will be held in the fall. Finally, and Marissa can provide more information here. Final waiver directives are we're talking about WIOA directives. Final waiver directives posted will soon. Applications due at the end of this month. The local and regional plans review and scoring completed, and we will be collecting that information and letting the local boards know about that. We anticipate that those plans will be approved with some request for I would say minor to medium changes. Subsequent designation, as you approved at the beginning of this meeting, subsequent designation of board certification, final approval was conducted by you, and so with that I will stop. And and Marissa, if there's anything to add on the WIOA, please.
Thank you, thank you, Pradeep, and thank you to all of our team for those great updates. We'll take our first question from Senator Caballero.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the updates. Would be good if we could get any materials that you feel comfortable giving to us. I've got tons of notes, but it's a little bit easier if I've got something to look at. The question I had was, you know, it's great to hear about, and this goes back to the high road discussion. I'm really glad to hear that there are partnerships and discussions going on, but it sounds to me like some of these have been operational for a period of time. And I wonder if you have any data in terms of the number of individuals served, the impacts on especially when you're offering retraining, impacts on the salaries. I would assume that when people go through a training or retraining program that their salaries increase, and anything that tells us, you know, we spend this money. It's not just about the relationships, although that's really important. That's how you get there. But is there any data? And the reason that becomes important to me is that the number one issue, pre-pandemic, in the middle of the pandemic, at the end of the pandemic, if we're there, is in my district, which is mostly made up of the Central Valley, are good paying jobs. And so the retraining and the opportunity for people to get good skills is really important. And yet a lot of the activity ends up starting in the bigger cities. And I want to know whether it's getting to parts of the Central Valley where people are really desperate for good jobs.
Thank you for that question, Senator Caballero. We share the importance of the data and the job quality component. And I would just say that if the staff can provide those written summaries to the board, I think, to your point, I think that would be helpful for all of us to reference. Does anybody who would like to respond to Senator Caballero's comments and question?
I'll jump in, Mr. Chair. Senator Caballero, thank you very much. And maybe we could connect with your staff and figure out exactly what materials we can get to you, so we don't just flood you with a bunch of documents.
That'd be great.
Great. So we're really happy to do that. On the outcomes, so as you said, we're building a field of practice. So there is a lot of focus, even in the UCLA evaluation, of how you build these and what the components are. And we've developed a lot of tools that are on our website that is really guiding people around this new field of practice that we're expanding around the state. But we do also look at participants and outcomes. So on the early investments, we served about 2,000 people. These weren't huge investments initially. About 2,000 folks. A lot of those trainees were current workers. So as we built those training partnerships, we created opportunities for people to move up. So there was a lot of mobility, but these were new structures that were built because of the partnerships were so strong, like inside hospitality, inside building services, for example. The Green Janitors Program was built out of the High Road Training Partnership work, for instance. So there were some new hires in there, and the outcomes looked very, very good. On the high road construction careers, the Prop 39 was the initial investment. It was about $14 million, and the outcomes on that were also quite good. There were 1,200 plus people served, and the placements in state-approved apprenticeship were pretty good, but placements in general were quite good. A lot of folks, we counted going to community college as a placement, so a lot of folks, because we did a lot of this work on college campuses, ended up enrolling in school, and some people went into other parts of the construction sector. So the demographics of all of this work look just like we want them to look, especially in the trade. So as we work with Jeremy Smith and the state building trades priority is greater diversity in the trades, and our cohorts of trainees look just like we want the building trades to look like. So as we build more stuff and we have community workforce agreements, we can pull people into those training programs and really move the needle on equity and diversity in that very important sector. Going forward, the new investments, we really have just gone out, so we don't have data on those, but the work that our policy shop that Pradeep talked about is finding that through line among all of our high road training partnerships and high road construction careers, so that we can present both qualitative, but really that quantitative data that the legislature needs to see to evaluate if these investments are making an impact and moving the needle on employment in the state. Sorry, long-winded answer. And yes, we'll come to and provide you some materials. Aida, did I miss anything there?
No, yeah, I'm just going to highlight that. So the second map that I shared of the expansion, those projects, some started in April, some in June. And so we're working closely with all of our branches, with Joel's branch and Pradeep, to ensure that we're capturing the right information that's both around the participants, but also about the partnerships and how those investments will live, the current investments will live beyond and continue to work together to address worker and employer needs.
That sounds great. So one of the issues I'm interested in is expanding the apprenticeship programs beyond the big cities. The complaint I hear in parts of rural California is that there's it's hard to find individuals that are trained in the construction industry. And so they tend to do bids where they're bringing people into the area from somewhere else. And there's a real interest in local hire. And the only way you get to local hire, if you're going to do the local hire for construction when there is not the skilled, is to increase the apprenticeship and the journeyman programs. And they really haven't expanded to a degree that we'd need if we're going to put a lot of money in construction out of the state budget. And there's a lot. So there will be a lot of money going into affordable housing, to I believe high-speed rail, to good big construction programs, but we need the apprenticeship programs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Senator. And we're really excited about that work too, as we build stuff, kind of looking at that infrastructure building, like we did in the old days, where it's not just about building things, it's really building things to impact employment.
Right.
We have been pushing in all the state buildings that are going up downtown Sacramento have community workforce agreements on those state buildings. So the new apprentices are actually being pulled from our high road construction careers program in Sacramento. So it's creating access to state approved apprenticeship on those projects. So the more we build and the more we consider those community workforce agreements, the more we pull people out of our programs and into state approved apprenticeship. And I think we can, the more we build, the more we can impact employment. And we do have a high road construction careers partnership, as Aida showed, in literally every corner of the state. So a community workforce agreement can say, we want to focus on workers from disadvantaged communities. We want to pull people from our community in those apprenticeship slots as they are created by these infrastructure investments. So it starts to move the needle on employment in a place-based way.
That's great. That's excellent. If we can make that movement into the Central Valley, it would make a tremendous difference. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely,
you.
Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Caballero. And just as Tim mentioned, the high road construction careers, it's in every region in the state, and the high road training partnerships, as Aida showed from the original map to under Governor Newsom's administration, it's now expanded throughout inland California, including Central Valley. So thank you for your advocacy there. We have a lot of questions, both in the chat and in the Zoom platform itself. So I'll now switch to John Brower.
Thank you, Angela. I had a statement and a question maybe for Pradeep or Tim. I just wanted folks to know one of those high road training partnerships is with the California Transit Works, which is a consortium of transit agencies. And I just want to acknowledge the one at Santa Clara Valley Transit Association. Those folks have really stepped up, unfortunately, since the tragedy that took place. The peer mentoring program that got created before us, but it has been really supported by Tim and Aida and the Workforce Board, has stepped in literally to help the 9 families that lost a family member, as well as the entire transit agency and ATU and AFSCME, who represents most of those workers there in addition to it. And I just want to say, because I think this is an instance where having that partnership in place really has meant something for that transit agency, even to move forward, frankly, going forward. So I just, there's a lot of folks in that partnership that I've seen doing hours and hours and hours of support work relative to each other, beyond just the workforce development stuff around that. So I just wanted you all to know that. The second was my question around the $750 million and the regional pieces. What's the relationship of that to those 5 categories that you were talking about, Pradeep? And particularly for me, I'm interested in the safety net aspect and the workforce development. Is there some intersection around that regional planning and sort of how those 5 areas are getting developed, or is that sort of parallel to sort of what happens with that regional planning process?
Tim, you want to take that first in terms of?
Yeah, thanks, John. If I understand the question, you're talking about the SURF fund, the $750 million in regional economic development. The details are actually going to be worked out for the most part by the kind of governance committee that's being pulled together, or that is already pulled together. The high road transition roadmap is going to be the guide for those communities on how to build partnerships and how to focus resources. So the investments from the state are going to kind of build on the partnerships, the regional partnerships in the communities that come together, but then using the roadmap as the guide. I don't know if that gets even anywhere close to your question. I like to answer questions that people didn't ask. That's my MO.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Is that fine, John?
Yeah, I'll probably explore further, but yes, that's fine.
All right, thanks.
Good, thank you. Larry Frank.
So this is a question for Joelle maybe, but also, Tim and anyone else. So you were mentioning the Prison to Employment Training Fund is in its last year. So I do know that, you know, the HRCCs and HRTPs is so focused on equity, and part of that equity does address the reentry population for some of the projects, but it's hard to kind of walk away from that focus somehow. So I wondered if there's a way to kind of keep that focus alive within the State Workforce Board. I know there are projects that are doing it. I also know that SB 731, which I know Senator Durazo and other senators are backing, which is a remarkable and critically needed piece of work that does criminal records relief, but it does it in a deeper way than it's ever been done. And it's actually got the support in LA of the LA Chamber of Commerce, which is quite remarkable to have that kind of coalition coming together. So there's going to be some opportunities to do deeper work here than has ever been done. And I'm just wondering if there's any thought about keeping some of that work as a focused work going forward.
Wow, it's such a great it's a great point and a great question, Larry. So the prison to employment work is so unique because it's a partnership with CDCR. So it's aligning pre-release services and training with industry sectors and job opportunities post-release, and connecting services once people are released in a really effective way. We made a ton of progress on this, and we don't want to shut down the program. We actually just didn't get refunded, but the process isn't over. So we're actually still hopeful that we'll get another infusion of investment, and we can keep going. The P2E, we still have another year of working on P2E. So that's good news. We can kind of revisit the funding later. P2E also connects to both the high road construction careers and the high road training partnerships pretty directly, because those are target populations, the reentry population, and justice involved, and also with a focus on older youth that are justice involved. So it ties together, but we really we need to keep that institutional alignment going with CDCR in order for us to really have an impact on this population. Get a good quality job is the best anti-recidivism approach. And that's what we're focused on. There are a lot of CBOs we work with very closely on this work.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Leonard Gonzalez, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tim, just along those lines, as far as with prison to employment, I mean, you have CalPIA that's ongoing and has several programs with CDCR, so it's something to think about. Really, my question is kind of piggybacking off of Senator Caballero, which is, I realize that some of these programs, are recently funded or in, a year or two in, but I'm curious to know what were in the specs of the RFP. I'd be curious to know what were some of the performance measures that were included for contractors, and if that's available, I'd be curious to see what those were. And then also you mentioned on the HRTP that many of those in Sacramento were going into apprenticeship programs. I'm curious, are any of the HRTPs registered under DAS as a pre-apprenticeship? And if so, are they entering and registering the trainees under the DAS-1 pre-apprenticeship?
Yeah, thank you, Leonard. Good questions. To the performance one first, on the HRCC, it was the initial investment was Prop 39, and then we came in with SB1, which, as Joelle noted, just went out. So the outcomes that we track are placements in state-approved apprenticeship programs, and also we're going to continue to track enrollment in schools and colleges, because we think that's an important outcome. And we're also tracking diversity. We're very intentional about ensuring that the cohorts have diverse, and there's also a very specific attention to women in the trades. The high road construction careers, they're partnerships of local building trades councils, and Leonard, as you know, training centers who run apprenticeship training programs. The actual trainers, providers, all of those are MC3 certified. So it's a requirement for our work that the programs that are actually doing the training for the pre-apprenticeship programs have to be MC3 certified by the National Building Trades Council. That's the curriculum we're working with. In fact, we've also done a lot of work inside pre-release with CDCR and CalPIA to make sure they're also using that same curriculum. So there's a connection between pre-release and post-release in terms of the construction trades. So not all the partners are certified for MC3, but the ones that are actually providing the training itself, they're MC3 certified. The high road training partnerships, we started with really an intention around building the partnerships and these sector-based interventions and this long-term development of these partnerships. And that was just WIOA money to start with. As we invest more money, we're looking at tracking other outcomes like job placements and the quality jobs and those kinds of things. But that's what we're working on currently with Pradeep and his shop, and how we make sure that we're collecting that data and presenting it in a way that really makes sense and tells the story about how HRTPs in general. Leonard, did I get closer? Yeah, go ahead, Aida.
Tim, I'll just add in terms of the RFA for this round of the portfolio that I shared, is that the funding source was GGRF. So CARB, the California Air Resource Board, sets criteria for that funding. So we needed to incorporate that into the RFA as well in terms of climate mitigation, climate adaptation, greenhouse gas reductions. They have their definition through the California Enviroscreen in terms of who the priority population are for those funds. So in addition to the funding sources requirements, we added requirements around the high road training partnership model, if the essential elements were there, or if they were looking at moving the needle around, how were they addressing equity, how would this help improve job quality, were employers at the table, or there's jobs connected to this training, is there worker voice, what is their structure? So in terms of like the details of an RFA, I think we can figure out what, if you need more detailed information, but we had to incorporate both the high road training partnership elements as well as the requirements of the greenhouse gas reduction fund.
So Leonard, did that question?
You did, and I just, I guess I would be interested, in to see for those entities on the apprenticeship side, those are going into registered apprenticeship programs, as you stated.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I think I'm not sure if you've had discussions with the chief, Eric Rood, but if those agencies are MC3 certified, they would qualify under Chief Rood's pre-apprenticeship programs, so that they could actually register and place those trainees into the DAS system. And then if they are, in fact, if they do go into a registered apprenticeship program, that paperwork would follow them. So the chief could actually run a report for you and this board so that we could see the results of those individuals going into registered apprenticeship programs in the state. So just a suggestion.
No, that's right. That's right on the money, Leonard. Absolutely. And we are working with Eric on that because we want to attract people after their place as apprentices. So yes, direct connection to state approved apprenticeship. We're all over that. We only want to put people in state approved apprenticeship, and using the MC3 model allows us access to the trades because 92% plus of construction apprentices are in the trades apprenticeship program. So we want to make that tight linkage because we want people to have good middle-class jobs. But that issue of making sure that we're tracking the progress of people even after their place as apprentices is really important to us, because we understand that, for example, women in the trades may get in for the first period, but may not make it in large numbers to the second and third period. And so we want to understand where those interventions need to be to increase that retention of people in the trades, and not just women, but also people who are formerly incarcerated. And because our intention is to have the services, the mentoring, the mental health services in some cases available to our participants even after they become apprentices. I don't want to call it a win just because they became an apprentice, I guess is what I'm saying. We want to make sure we're following people through until they're journey level workers, right?
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you for those great points. Jeremy Smith.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, good. I didn't know if I needed to be unmuted by somebody on the other end. I just wanted to pick up on Senator Caballero's statement earlier about, you know, a lot of money in the budget for construction work. Way back when I started on this board in 2010, there were none of these initiatives. So the legislature would give money for construction work, but there was no buy-in or an HRCC or HRTP at the state board to connect to like we have now. And so that's very helpful. And it's important to remember that apprenticeship only, maybe back up. There needs to be construction work for apprentices to work on, for them to journey through their apprenticeship. And so the state has all this extra money. They made investments in public projects and public construction. That's great. That's going to open up slots for anybody who wants to be an apprentice, because there's going to be places for them to learn their craft on. But it's also important to note that this is why we push so hard at the state building trades to get the requirement to use a skilled and trained workforce into affordable housing legislation, because there is so much work there that we all recognize and know that we need. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but there's apprenticeship for years there. There are apprenticeship slots for years trying to build us out of this affordable housing glut. And we worked with Senator Caballero on one of her bills to include skilled and trained, and several other senators and assembly members as well this year in that legislation. But that's what you need, really, is that investment from the state and that direction legislatively from the state to require developers to use workers, journeymen, journeywomen, and apprentices who are in or will be in state-approved apprenticeship programs. Policymakers have to hold the folks employing workers feet to the fire to use those workers. And that's what we try and do at the legislative level. And that's why it's critical that the state board has these initiatives in place to make those connections. So we're glad that Tim and the team and Governor Newsom and Governor Brown, through their leadership, we've got those initiatives in place. But we're also glad for the legislators on the call that you voted to, add skilled and trained and create job opportunities for apprentices in bills that have passed on to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Jeremy. Tim, is there anything you want to respond to that, or is this it's noted Jeremy's insights?
As usual, Jeremy's right as rain.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy. We definitely acknowledge all that. Shani Weber.
Hi. So all this talk about apprenticeships, I just wanted to add there's another piece of this that's part of the California community colleges, and also sort of underscore the importance of the partnerships that you saw reflected in the budget that Tim went over. Really, what we're trying to do is state level alignment, working on all of these projects. For example, the California community colleges have the California Apprenticeship Initiative that's funded every year to support apprenticeship programs. And what we are trying to do in working with Tim and his team is align those apprenticeship programs and the funding that we put out to the field to incorporate those high road training partnership principles. And, with the apprenticeship programs that we do, it's really, they take a lot of time, effort, and investment, and then they take really good employer partnerships to be successful and really get people into these meaningful and good paying jobs. And so those elements that are in the high road training partnerships is really critical for us to begin to align and incorporate into all of our partnerships. And then also aligning our apprenticeship programs with the funding that is put out by the California Workforce Board. I think it's also really important. I think of this as kind of, if the state agencies are aligned and working together, we in a lot of ways supercharge what those partnerships do on the ground, right, at the regional and local level. And then also another quick piece of it is that with the California Apprenticeship Initiative program, we do carve out specifically apprenticeship funding opportunities for the rural communities and the rural regions. So just wanted to highlight that will be coming out as well.
Thank you for those great points, Shani, and all of that is noted. Tim, is there anything you want to add to that, or you're acknowledging as well her insights?
As usual, Shani is right as rain.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Shani. And so I just want to acknowledge that Letha earlier had made a comment about the Employment Training Administration seeking public comment on customer-centric solutions, and the link to that in the chat box. And Curtis has provided several links as well. So thank you all for that. And Clemente, before we move on, has any public comments come in at all?
Yes, there was actually one that came in. This is from Regina Wilson from the African American Community Empowerment Council. The subject line reads, the agenda item, sorry, I'm not sure what agenda number, but Tim Rainey is speaking. I have a deep concern that communication is not mentioned in the expanded target areas of workforce development. Our communication structure is vital to any community. I would like the board to consider if there is room to add communication into the IT or create its own category. So I would imagine she's referring to adding communications to the agenda as its own agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Clemente. Yeah. We'll make sure staff follows up just to get further clarity on Ms. Wilson's suggestion and see how we can respond to that. Thank you for sharing that. We will now proceed to local workforce board updates. We have a standing item on our agenda for local workforce development boards to report. The topic is local board roles and work regarding economic recovery, quality jobs, and equity. The 45 local boards are the critical front line in responding to the multiple crises we face, fighting for economic and social equity and for a high road recovery. At our January meeting, we heard from the San Diego Workforce Partnership and the San Francisco Office of Economic and Workforce Development. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Chris Stadelman, Executive Director of NOVA, which covers Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. Chris, are you available now?
I am here and available. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Please proceed. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board, and especially Tim for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. I'll try to be quick. I want to give you first a little background in who NOVA is, and second, what recovery efforts we're working on, and third, I want to tell you about a new regional initiative that we're kind of proud of. So first off, who are we? We're the Workforce Board in the Silicon Valley. We're not the only ones who claim that label. We are a strange configuration of, it's actually a joint powers agreement of 8 jurisdictions, 7 cities in northern Santa Clara County and all of San Mateo County. That means we cover the geography between the city limits of San Jose and San Francisco. They both also claim the Silicon Valley label. We're the Bay Peninsula region put together, but essentially we really are all Silicon Valley. Our model, I try to explain why we're different from other workforce boards. It's really based on the Silicon Valley economy, especially in the peninsula. I like to say that the most successful workforce boards are those that customize their services to the needs in the local economy. What that means for NOVA is prior to the pandemic, most of our customers were dislocated workers because dislocated in the tech industry. You know, mergers and acquisitions, startups going under, skills changing all the time. It's churn in the economy. And that caused a lot of dislocation. Without enhanced skills, some of those workers would be thrown away forever. They need to be reskilled to meet the demands of Silicon Valley employers. So that's what we have, built our reputation on in the previous world pre-pandemic. We always had the full gamut of customers from, non-English speaking, new immigrants all the way up to dislocated software engineers. but we had more at the top level than most other workforce boards. Then the pandemic arrived and everything changed. Our model, which is to serve everybody who is looking for work in the Silicon Valley. We're an in-commute region. There are some smaller cities in our area that have more jobs than people, but not everybody has access to those jobs, especially women, especially people of color, especially people who haven't had the advantages of an elite four-year degree. So most of our customers, and still are, people with bachelor's degrees and some above bachelor's degrees. Again, that's our market, but that's no guarantee of a job here. Here, employers can be picky about which degree, from which school, where did you place. It's an economy with high costs where a layoff can mean poverty in a matter of just a handful of paychecks. So pandemic arrives, all services go online. Of course, most of our customers can access those services online. We very successfully transitioned. We had to reimagine all of our workshops, all of our service delivery, especially registration and all the paperwork and documentation that go with WIOA funding. We managed all of that. We got up and running. And then we started to see a small turn in that customer base towards lower income hospitality and leisure workers. So in San Mateo County, physically in the geography sits the San Francisco airport. Now, San Francisco claims and runs the airport, but it literally sits in San Mateo County. The WARN notices that resulted from the economic region in the airport and the surrounding businesses resulted in over 20,000 impacted individuals impacted by WARNs, over 20,000 people. That includes airport workers, airport vendors, rental car shops, and airport hotels in that vicinity, 20,000 people. Now, we are regularly in NOVA, the #1 area in the country for WARN notices, #1 in people impacted by large layoffs, more than LA, more than San Diego, more than everybody. And of course, the San Francisco airport is keeping us at the top. So that population is changing. Our services, always in Silicon Valley, you customize everything to the market. So we're always customizing what we do. And we have been changing what workshops we offer, how we deliver services. And we're discovering what the whole world knows, and that's that the people at the bottom rung of the education and economic scale do not have access to the training and skill building that they require to get on a career ladder and escape poverty, because they can't afford to take training. They can't afford the childcare, the transportation. They need 2 jobs to pay the rent. They can't, let one job sit while they go and upskill. It's always been a problem. Right now, the whole world is seeing how big a problem it is. So that brings me to the recovery initiatives that we're involved in. Thanks to the pandemic, everybody wants workforce at the table. I could do recovery tables all day long, every day, if I would allow my calendar to go there. I first want to tell you about San Mateo County. It's much smaller than Santa Clara County. And in Santa Clara County, we share services with Work to Future, which is in the city of San Jose. But let me tell you a little bit about San Mateo County. Because the population is smaller, because there's no giant city like San Jose to make decisions, the small cities in the county really work together on recovery efforts. So they put a recovery table together very quickly, invited us to play a prominent role. And in fact, last winter, they hired us to do a strategic plan around workforce recovery. When will employers be ready to start hiring again? And what skill needs will be different than they were before the pandemic? So we undertook the project, interviewed scores of businesses, mostly small, some medium-sized, across the geography, across target groups, collected all the data, and made a set of recommendations to the County Board of Supervisors. We were asking, when are you going to be ready to hire people again? And found out right away, wrong question. Pivot, the right question was, will you survive? How long will you survive? What will it take to keep you in business to the end of this thing? So we quickly pivoted. Of our 8 recommendations we made, the first 4 are about small business. So the recommendations are under 3 categories. First, prioritize saving small business from permanent closure. We've lost a lot of jobs. We can't afford to lose any more. How do we preserve what's left? 2, train unemployed workers for the new economy. And we don't just mean unemployed, we mean lower skilled. How do we change that lower skilled category? And 3, connect employers to workforce talent in a transparent and inclusive manner. We delivered this in early March to the Board of Supervisors. They accepted the report and set aside $5 million to implement these recommendations. And I can tell you that of the top 4 that we made, the recommendations we made for small businesses, things like create a shop local campaign, set up a program to teach e-commerce to small businesses and help them access technology. The county's already implemented 3 of the 4 recommendations we made for small businesses. And they've set aside millions of dollars in ARPA funding to implement workforce solutions. We're now in a design phase where the county's helped us bring a group of stakeholders together: education, labor, economic development, homeless, formerly incarcerated, to bring people together to design the intervention strategies that would really take and assist someone at a low skill level through at least a year's training to get them to a point where they can get on a foot on the career ladder. So that program is really, really moving fast. And I think we're going to have some great success stories to tell at the other side. I think what we're working on here is the success formula. What are all the things it takes? What are all the partners that can deliver it? How do you package to serve the whole person and all the needs they bring to the table to get them over the finish line? So I think San Mateo may get us there. Santa Clara, bigger, more complicated, many more stakeholders, lots more money, lots of areas wanting the money. I sit on a recovery table for the county that are bringing all the different groups together. And I lead a team that's on recovery for residents, but there's a recovery team for government, for small business, for nonprofits, and we're all pulling the information together. And there are many initiatives in Santa Clara County. The biggest one, it started as something called Bridge to Recovery that was hosted by Catholic Charities. It's now changed to Build Back Better, hosted by Joint Venture. So as I said, it's a lot bigger, a little bit more process oriented. They've got probably another year of planning to go, but they're going to have big ARPA dollars to invest in recovery efforts. Okay, so that's recovery. Third, I want to brag about the RPI 4.0. And the reason I want to brag about it is we've struggled in the Bay Peninsula region with regionalism. If you could just think for a minute on what really does San Jose have in common with San Francisco? Not a lot. Their workforce programs sit inside city government. The mayor has a lot of influence over what they do, who they serve, and how they serve it. There's really, it was hard for us to find areas of commonality to build a really impactful regional initiative. We think this one is it. We wanted to work on diversity and inclusion. Everybody's thinking about it these days. Heaven knows that Silicon Valley really needs this work. Philosophically, everybody's behind it, but how do you make the changes that really impact how people access employment in the Silicon Valley? So we're using our RPI funding, thank you, Tim, and EDD, for a curriculum out of an organization called Skillful. It's a nonprofit in Boulder, Colorado. And the goal is teach people, give them the tools to hire, well, recruit first, hire and retain individuals based on skills, not pedigree. Teach employers how to figure out what are the skills they need. Forget the pedigree. What do you need somebody to be able to do? Help the system help people show how they can accomplish things, show what their competencies are, what their skills can do. So it's a curriculum. Right now, we're doing a train the trainer model. So they're training 25 representatives from the region. That's 1 or 2 staff from each of the 3 workforce boards. And the rest of the seats, we have recruited, and we've had overwhelming response. We're over-recruited to chambers of commerce, business support organizations, entrepreneurial centers, economic development agencies. They're going to be the trainers. It's a 4-day-long commitment to sit in this training. But at the end, they will be able to teach their members and businesses in the community with tools and practices that can really change how they do recruitment, hiring, and retention. This is one of the first times in my career where I've seen a real opportunity to impact the demand side of the equation. We're very adept at working on the supply side, but how do you change hiring practices inside a big tech company? It's tough. And again, philosophically, they think they do it. They don't. So this will give us the opportunity to get inside those businesses and show them with their own numbers how they're not doing it and how they can change it. So we have big plans. We'll let you know how it comes out. Those trainers are going to be putting on a class every month over the next year. But remember, now they have the curriculum. It can continue. They can put this in their toolkit as a business service, which is, I think, why we've had such an overwhelming response. I'd be happy to take questions if there are any. I'm sorry if I went over my time.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Chris. Those local insights are very valuable, and we appreciate your frontline efforts. I'll take a question from Nicole.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say thanks, Chris, for sharing your story. It's very exciting what you all are doing in that area. That's a little bit of my hometown. I'm from the Bay Area, from Fremont, went to school in Santa Clara. So I know how tough that marketplace can be, but you guys are really doing some real innovative initiatives out there, and I appreciate that. And I also wanted to say, really appreciate this focus on the demand side. And it boggles my mind that we haven't found yet a way for like chambers and workforce boards locally to work together, because it is an ecosystem and you have to have the job to create the career and opportunity to improve the person's life. So I always like that cycle, and I love how you guys are creating new innovative ways to look at that and to help the demand side kind of see where their shortfalls are and help them fill those gaps. And I know in that area where innovation is the theme, that they will appreciate that and receive that warmly. So thank you for everything you're doing. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Chris. And I want to acknowledge Hillary's comment reiterating the value of childcare and how it has disproportionately impacted women leaving the workforce, which obviously is not reflected in our unemployment numbers. Thank you for that. And we know that the federal administration is also working on resources to shore up the childcare in conjunction with the efforts that Governor Newsom and the state legislature are doing. So thank you for that. If we don't have any other further comments, thank you, Chris, for that update. We'll move to our presentations portion of the agenda, beginning with our Future of Work Commission final report to Governor Newsom with Abby Snape.
Thanks, Angelo. And Miranda, I have sent you my slides if you could share them. Great. Thank you so much. So I know everybody's been sitting. I hope you've been able to take some breaks and want to just quickly go through and appreciate the opportunity. But just to set some context and background on the Future Work Commission, I know Secretary Sue has briefed the State Board, and I know you are up to date. And I'm really excited that this report will be followed by one that includes one of our commissioners, Carla Javits, who can add more color and nuance when she talks. But I really want to focus on the recommendations, how they came about and how we're starting to move forward on them, especially how they are embodied in some specific ways in the May revise. And I think the ways in which any budget is a core values document really reflect the values of the Future of Work Commission. Could you advance, please, Miranda? Thank you. Just as a quick refresher, Governor Newsom established the commission on May Day 2019, and we were just blessed with stellar commissioners who represented really diverse sectors of the California economy, very diverse voices from labor, from business, from the legislature, and we're incredibly fortunate to have the leadership of Mary Kay Henry and James Manika in guiding the work of the commission. Could you move ahead, please? Thank you. And the Future of Work Commission, and you probably know this, really came to the work with a framework that differed from other similar future of work efforts. While the report and the research certainly address technological change and automation, it doesn't fall into the robot apocalypse coming for your jobs narrative, and really emphasizes job quality as a North Star for job creation, economic metrics, and state investment. And it has a special emphasis on identifying initiatives to improve opportunities for workers who've historically faced inequities based on their race, gender, life experience, or geography. And the commission went through 9 months of intensive research and analysis, coalescing in a set of key challenges, and then moved on to 5 core recommendations, which I will share. Next slide. And could spend another hour on the research and the really disturbing findings around low-wage work in California, the uneven distribution of that work among women of color in particular. And the heart of the challenge is really inequity, economic mobility, and low quality, low wage work. And so we wanted the recommendations to address these challenges. Next slide, please. And so the kind of transition to the recommendations really clustered around supporting workers in all kinds of transition. We had a conversation earlier today about the just transition work, and that will be a core part of transition for the state and actually workers around the globe to safely enable technology and protect workers in a data-driven future, to build skills to prepare for the jobs of the future, and to really put a stake in the ground of making California not only a center of innovation, but a global leader in a place where workers can thrive. And these challenge areas really, I think, set the context and the framework for the recommendations. Next slide, please. And by the way, I put the full report in the chat for those of you who haven't read it. And so really the core principles you can see here for all stakeholders have to really rest on promoting equity of people in place, empowering workers and rebalancing the power with employers, harnessing the full capabilities and collaboration of all stakeholders in the social compact. And the governor had called for this set of recommendations to really create a whole new social compact for work and workers in California. We wanted to be forward-looking, and the commission was very ambitious and aspirational in looking at its goals and recommendations. Next slide, please. And you can see the level of ambition in these 5 recommendations. And I think you can see how together they really create a vision for a state where workers can thrive, where work is far more equitably distributed, and we have an economy that works for all. And so the 5 core recommendations are to ensure that there are jobs for everyone who wants to work, to eliminate working poverty, to create a 21st century worker benefits model and safety net, to raise the standard and share of quality jobs, and to future-proof California with jobs and skills. Each of these recommendations, and I'll briefly go through them in a minute, included an ambitious moonshot goal for our state to achieve by 2030, and then a very initial preliminary set of proposals that can move us towards these goals. And the work now is really building out those proposals and initiatives. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so in ensuring that there are jobs for everyone who wants to work, the Commission wants to call on the federal government to enact a job guarantee and to create at least 1 million jobs in line with California's climate goals. And you can see this recommendation really embedded in the $1.1 billion economic resilience and job package that Tim talked about earlier in the meeting. This is new to package, as Tim described, to link planning around just transition and job creation in the transition to a carbon neutral economy and to respond to other challenges in the future of work, to link those with the expansion of high road training partnerships. So creating, and to do that at the regional level in a way that grows an equitable economy, has a focus on economic development and workforce development that trains people for the good jobs of the future. You can also see embedded in here priorities for the embedded in this budget request are priorities for vulnerable regions and communities, women, immigrants, youth, justice-involved individuals, workers of color, and persons with disabilities. Next slide, please. And very ambitious and visionary to have a moonshot goal that by 2030, working poverty is eliminated. And, you know, with the idea of really focusing on the most vulnerable sectors and occupations, especially in hospitality, retail, and care. And I'll just focus on care for a minute. And the COVID crisis and its aftermath, well, I guess we're not quite finished and moving towards recovery, has just shown us how dependent so many families in our state are on caregivers, both for elderly family members as well as for children, and how vulnerable the care economy is, both for the families that receive care, but for the workers, the caregivers in our economy. And we just saw that play out in the ways in which COVID spread so early on in nursing homes, in part because caregivers there can't live on one job and moved from facility to facility and spread COVID. That contributed to some of the outbreaks there. And so it's really important to focus on building wages and improving job quality in the long-term care sector, to link training to wage increases. I know one of our high road training partnerships does that, looking at opportunities to expand that. And the budget proposal does include a very large investment of, I believe, $200 million for career advancement training for in-home support service workers. And there really are multiple opportunities in different sections of the budget that can help build a multi-pronged initiative around improving care jobs for elderly and at the other age of the spectrum in childcare. Tim alluded to calling out childcare workers and early childhood educators in the jobs package. Next slide, please. Another recommendation is really creating a 21st century worker benefits model and safety net. You know, in the many ways that the COVID pandemic tore the Band-Aid off of what we knew was an uneven, inequitable economy, we saw that access to benefits is creates a very fragile safety net for so many workers in our state. And I think an emerging priority here is the first, to develop and pilot a portable benefits platform for domestic workers. There is a platform, ALIA, that is used in limited settings for domestic workers with multiple employers. And there are a few local initiatives emerging in the state, one in San Francisco, that would require employers of domestic workers to contribute to benefits for their workers. Next slide. And so important is to raise the standard and share of quality jobs. And an important move there is to create a job quality index. There are a few efforts that are starting. There's some proposed legislation, but this really should be a priority of ours to create a widely used job quality index and to use that as one of the tools to measure the economic well-being of the state and start thinking of economic well-being in terms of the benefits to the workers and not only shareholders. Next slide. And lastly, I think this very ambitious, exciting concept of future-proofing the state in both defining what the future jobs are and preparing a workforce for the economy of the future and for the jobs that will emerge in the future and really anticipate some of the future shocks. This concept is really also embedded in the jobs package Tim described. Through those over the next 5 years, we should be training over 50,000 workers through the expansion of the high road training partnerships, as Tim described, through the expansion of training through the employment training panel, through the collaboration with the community college, all of these driving towards anticipating the changes to come to California's economy and jobs and training a workforce that is both skilled and resilient to be successful and to go into the good jobs that are developing. Another piece to get towards this goal is apprenticeship expansion. That's come up as multiple times in our conversation in this meeting today. And we are working throughout the entities of the labor agency, primarily the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, to meet the governor's very ambitious and important goal of getting to 500,000 apprenticeships by the year 2029, and working on strategies to, and we've talked about this today, to just, and I loved what you said, Jeremy, about the kind of the pipeline for apprenticeships in construction. We have to double down and really expand apprenticeship training and pre-apprenticeships into those good construction jobs and make sure that residential construction those are good jobs and good apprenticeships. Tremendous potential to expand in the public sector, starting in our own state service, and where there are limited apprenticeships for incumbent workers, but we have to create mechanisms to open those up to new hires and frankly meet the state's own hiring demand. There's some really exciting work going on, expanding apprenticeships in the non-traditional sectors, the newly emerging, and you certainly have been part of this, Angela, cybersecurity apprenticeship initiative in the Inland Empire. I think some exciting conversations going on and practice going on around apprenticeship development in early childhood and K through 12 education and in other sectors throughout the economy. And then we really have much work to do on youth apprenticeship and to take and to really deepen and build partnerships with the K through 12 system to make youth apprenticeship just part of every young person's high school education. I am going to pause there. Want to be sensitive to time. Happy to take a couple of questions. Angela, I know that we have another presentation on the agenda today.
Thank you so much, Abby. And these big picture concepts and the incredible amount of work that was put into this from the commissioners and your team, really appreciate that. Are there any comments or questions for Abby? So one thing I just want to note is that there was an error on our agenda that I'm sure all of you, many of you that have been on our board for a while know that our full board meetings are from 10 to 1. Typically, for some reason, it was a mistake and it was put to noon. So I'm not saying that we're going to take up till 1, but I just wanted to note that that was an error in the agenda. Thank you, Abby, for that. Oh, Nicole, you'd like to say something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just have a question. You know, all of this sounds fantastic, and there's going to need to be a significant amount of state investment in resources and, you know, personal time and thoughtfulness and everything that's already taken place to get to this point. And a concern of mine is that if, you know, the time frame is very short, we're talking 2030 to do some of this. I have great concern that if we're not able to achieve this goal, if the resources aren't there, we're going to fail a lot of people. And so was there any conversation with the commission related to, you know, the resources that are going to be needed to support this kind of framework? And what happens if we miss the mark and we're not able to provide what we are saying that we can to millions of Californians?
You know, the way I'd like to respond, Nicole, is that we did not talk about missing the mark. I mean, the focus was really on setting ambitious goals and being determined to meet them in the spirit of we have to be bold and we have to be ambitious because these are really important changes. And, you know, as recognizing that there are so many factors at play that are in the control of the state and others that are not affecting the future of work. But I think the collective spirit on the commission was, you know, put the stake in the ground and work towards getting there. And the, I think, really impressive level, like unprecedented level of investment in this year's state budget really allows us to propel some of the initiatives forward. So I think we can look at those as a good down payment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Abby. All of this was very helpful. We will now proceed to our next agenda item, which is innovative models for transitional subsidized employment. This is going to be a panel. So the federal law caps WIOA funding for transitional employment at 10%. The state recently got a waiver request approved that allows up to 30% of WIOA adult and dislocated worker formula funds to be spent on transitional jobs for participants. We invited some folks to talk about a few models of transitional employment and employment social enterprises. So I want to welcome Lisa Countryman-Quaros, the CEO of San Francisco Jewish Vocational Services, Stephen Bediaco, co-founder of Turning Basin Labs, Carla Javits, CEO and President REDF, Robert Enterprise Development Fund, and Sarah Glenn Lestecow, I hope I'm saying this right, I'm sorry, Deputy Executive Director, California Center for Employment Opportunities, and then Raw Criscitiello, SEIU, Worker-Owned Recovery, California. My apologies if I mispronounced anyone's name.
Thank you, Angelo. And Carla, you can advance to the next slide. I want to thank the Workforce Board and staff and our elected officials for welcoming us today to speak with you about these new models for transitional jobs and subsidized employment, which I think offer us some new tools in our toolbox to address some of the thorny issues we've been talking about here today. So I'm going to provide a little bit of framing around our work and include and start with an introduction to JVS. JVS partners with employers to develop transformative programs that don't just connect workers with jobs, but put them on a path to real economic mobility. We've been doing this since 1973, and we have innovated through 5 recessions and supported thousands of people in their career journeys. Next slide. Today, we envision a California where all families can thrive. We are creating greater access to high-road jobs in healthcare, technology, and the skilled trades in close partnership with employers. And these programs are helping our clients achieve average hourly wages of $31 an hour. That's nearly $60,000 a year. Next slide. But we know the need is great. Today, over 1/3 of Californians are living at or near the poverty line and struggling to get by. What's worse, 80% of those have at least one working adult in the family. And those hardest hit by our unequal systems are job seekers of color, especially Black Californians, fully 1/4 of whom are living in poverty. This is not just a jobs crisis, this is an opportunity crisis. The intersectional problems of income inequality and racial equity are complex. It's not just training and skill building, this is a systems problem. The models we want to talk with you about today are critical for 2 reasons. First, they center around work-based learning, which we know is one of the most successful approaches to meeting the needs of job seekers with barriers. Second, these models point the way to the options available to us in a truly modernized workforce development system. Before getting into that second point, modernizing the public workforce system, I want to just zoom in a little bit on the value of work-based learning with an example that comes directly from JVS. If you could advance to the next slide. Just one of our programs, a Salesforce Administrator Training Program, we can do a comparison which shows that people who have access to paid work-based learning have a significantly higher likelihood of getting employed, over 70%, as opposed to those who do not have access to work-based learning. That program serves a somewhat higher skilled population in the full spectrum of all the different people that we serve. But the more barriers to employment that people have, the greater the impact of paid work-based learning. So we know it's really essential, and we have to create more ways to increase access to it. Today, you're going to learn about a couple of models, employment social enterprises and worker co-ops, that are built with market realities in mind and that solve for the gaps inherent in that market system. JVS currently is partnering, and you can advance to the next slide, I'm sorry. JVS partners with Turning Basin Labs, in addition to our many, many partnerships, to create access to paid work-based learning through their worker co-op staffing firm model. This partnership creates a dual benefit. On the one hand, through this model, we create access to work-based learning, which would not have been available to our job seekers otherwise. Secondly, we are creating access to supported talent for struggling small businesses. In other words, and this was alluded to earlier in the call, we are marrying workforce development approaches with economic development needs. Our bookkeeping grads are getting placed at higher rates relative to pandemic levels, over 70%, and achieving average wages of $25 an hour through our partnership with Turning Basin Lab. The bottom line is this model responds to the need for flexible talent while still offering a high level of job quality, which includes benefits, worker voice and worker ownership, as well as access to the earn and learn model that does look a lot like apprenticeship and directly aligns with the recommendations of the Future of Work report. And I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Stephen Bediaco from Turning Basin Lab, who's going to talk even in more detail about the partnership.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone for having us here today. If we could jump to the next slide, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to rattle through. So my name is Stephen Bediaco. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Turning Basin Labs. We are a worker-owned staffing agency. We're also a co-op, so very distinctive from traditional agencies. And I'll probably just talk you through a little bit about what we do, as well as the partnership that we've had with JVS, and then I'll hand you over to Carla. So essentially we do three things there. I'll let you read for yourself, but we're basically offering economic opportunity for our workers. We offer them effectively kind of freelancer protection. So we make sure people are only paid at least $20 plus an hour, and we support them to be AB5 compliant. And then we offer community membership. So our workers and contractors have access to a network and support. The key thing to say as well is that when our workers complete 120 hours of placements or work, as it is with JVS and with others, they then become co-owners in our agency. So we basically profit share with them at the end of the year. So very different from traditional staffing agency. Next slide. Just to really kind of hammer home how we are different from other staffing agencies. Just the top section there, you can see how a traditional staffing model works, where people are simply signed up, matched to a job, fees are taken, and support ends. We are very different. So we basically sign up our workers, understand their circumstances, try and commit them to high road work, and then once they've done 120 hours, there is an opportunity to continually remain involved in the co-op. So essentially, we're a staffing agency that cares about our workers, interested in what they get paid, interested in them accessing benefits, and interested in how they manage to sustain high road work going forward. Next slide. This is just to give you a little bit more of an insight into exactly what we do with JVS. I mean, that's been a great partnership, and essentially myself, Lisa, and others, we came together probably at the end of last summer and thought, actually, how can we do something here that will support workers, support local small businesses, and help with the recovery? And so essentially JVS are sourcing and training talent, usually Black, Indigenous, people of color, female talent, returning citizens, long-term unemployed, and then training them and helping them to get job ready as it relates to bookkeeping and using QuickBooks. We're then collaborating to place them on a kind of 8 to 12 week work-based learning program. And what we're doing is hosting them as W-2 and then contracting them out to those employers. And Small Business Majority are also helping us to source those employers. And then once those workers have completed those placement programs that are occurring at the minute with small local businesses, also usually led by Black, Indigenous, people of color, or female leaders, both ourselves and JVS are collaborating to help them, what I would describe, find the long-term high road working solution that they're looking for. So typically that might include full-time W-2 work, doing bookkeeping or financial management, or it might involve us hosting them as W-2 and finding them a handful of clients that helps to meet the quota of work that they need. Because some of our workers don't want to work full-time. They want good quality work to mix with going to college, looking after their family, or whatever it might be. So we've been working on this project, and we really want to scale and develop this over the coming weeks and months. Next slide. Again, I'll just let you speak to this. Really, the diagram to the right just shows how we do more for our workers in relation to other staffing agencies. We're offering learning and development. We're offering employer of record service. We're offering them ownership. Next slide. This is just a little bit on the progress that we've made. We are a young, small organization. It's just 5 of us. We were supported with a grant from the Irvine Foundation in August 2019. We were heavily impacted by COVID, had to let everybody go, but then we've been slowly rebuilding. And some of those partners, including JVS and partners that we're talking with today, have been instrumental in helping us to survive. And actually, we're now seeing a lot more interest in worker ownership, worker co-op more broadly. Next slide. Yeah, that's it. So, you know, there's some contact details if people want to get in touch and learn more. Apologies if I've moved too fast. But now I'm going to hand over to Carla from Red F to talk about the amazing work they're doing in social enterprise.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Mr. Farouk, Mr. Rainey, members. Great to be here today. Thank you for your leadership. Thanks for learning about California innovation. I want to share two main messages today. First message is the California economy and our society is going to be more equitable and productive when more of the talented people who have been incarcerated, homeless, in foster care, and experienced other hard times are working. This is a substantial percentage of the people that Chris Stadelman at Nova mentioned earlier, who have least access to HRTP and other great initiatives you're supporting. And Larry Frank mentioned earlier, the prison to employment pipeline. Second point, California knows what to do to make this happen. You've just heard about a fantastic model. And we have the potential to be a national leader in implementing at scale another evidence-based solution with a clunky name, employment social enterprise. It represents the kind of innovation California is known for, and which notably workforce boards in LA, San Diego, and a few other places have supported. It's an employer-centric workforce development model from end to end, somewhat hidden treasure in California, and that you may not know is scaling up. The California Future of Work Commission, which I had the privilege of serving on, called for an investment in employment social enterprise as a bridge to the workforce for those who are left out. Now is the time. And of course, it's exciting to have a champion at the federal level, Julie Su, who's the #2 at the Federal Department of Labor now, who with Abby, who was unbelievably supportive, were instrumental in the Future of Work Commission efforts and can complement what we do here in California. So what are employment social enterprises? In short, these are businesses that provide jobs, income, supports, and training that prepare people who face high barriers for high road jobs and to participate in the kind of high road training partnerships that Mr. Rainey, this board, and Governor Newsom support. We encourage other workforce boards to intentionally include employment social enterprises in their employer outreach and engagement. This is certainly also a pre-apprenticeship model, and as Lisa mentioned earlier, a work-based learning model. Red backs these companies. You can see the results. We provide capital and technical assistance, and about a third of the results that you see at the bottom of the page, 73,000 people employed, $1.2 million in revenue earned, are California results. There's, you know, a ripple effect, obviously, everyone's well aware of when people get jobs, and I would just highlight that we have third-party data that shows $2.23 of benefit for society for every dollar spent. You know, I would also mention, you can see here kind of a statewide map and the number of social enterprises in California. Importantly, employment social enterprise addresses racial inequity. Why? Because, as we all know, racist policies and systems have led to an imbalance in the percentage of people homeless and incarcerated who are Black and Latino, who also face racial discrimination as well as other bias when they try to go back to work. So we have a good number of these enterprises in California, almost 100. We track a lot of them, earned $293 million in revenue, employed 10,000 people. These may be companies that you know of, and you may not have known of them as under the employment social enterprise banner, but there are many more, and these are some. Just as some examples, there's we've heard talk of the Central Valley today. There's a great employment social enterprise neighborhood industries in the Central Valley. There's one in the green economy, Grid Alternatives in Los Angeles, training people to provide solar systems for families with low incomes. And in San Diego, notably, Kitchens for Good has a registered state apprenticeship program in the culinary area. And I know that's something you all have been trying to promote, getting certainly deeper in the construction trades, but also getting into other industries. There's a lot going on in the policy arena now. Senator Becker has a bill, SB 779. We're co-sponsoring with Lisa and the folks at Jewish Vocational Services to add the employment social enterprise definition, worker co-op language, to be considered when we're funding earn and learn programs. We have a proposal from the governor that includes $1.5 billion to transform public spaces, clean up highways, and there's $150 million in there that Caltrans is interested in dedicating to essentially a social enterprise, employment social enterprise program that could double the number of people employed to 5,000, create 15,000 jobs. And we have a robust coalition throughout the state that is advocating for these kinds of programs. Lastly, just to share with you, there is data. I know sometimes there's questions, how successful are these? We have data from an independent study. Wages increase for people who got a job in social enterprise, 268%. They were 33% more likely to stay employed than others who receive more traditional workforce services. And then we did some EDD matching data that was very exciting that showed that after people have a job in a social enterprise, essentially there's a higher number of people who are employed than were pre-intervention. And then from 2 to 8 years out, because we looked at longitudinal data, wages continue their upward trend. So I think there's a lot to be excited about here. California has a strong presence in this arena and can be a national leader. And we encourage the state board and local boards to consider deeper investment in employment social enterprise. And with that, I want to hand off to one of our longstanding and deepest partners, the Center for Employment Opportunities, Sarah Glenn Leistico. They are really one of the premier employment social enterprises in the United States with operations across the country and throughout California. Sarah?
Thanks so much, Carla, and great job on my name. I appreciate it. It's a hard one. Thanks so much for having us here today. We're really excited to be here with so many of our colleagues and advocates for this work. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Center for Employment Opportunities in California. I am based in our LA office and I oversee all of our California work. CEO is a reentry employment social enterprise, as Carla mentioned. And our work, which is about supporting people returning home from incarceration, focused on advancing racial and economic justice. We center and amplify the expertise of the individuals with direct experience in the criminal legal system. And we believe that everyone, regardless of their circumstances, deserves the opportunity to work towards a stronger future for themselves, their families, and their communities. So much of what we do connects to many of the previous speakers' comments today. A few of those highlights are the importance of specific focus on employment services for our reentry colleagues and other high barrier populations, the importance of paid work while providing flexibility and funding for training and upscaling, as both Chris, Lisa, and others mentioned, and the importance of traditional apprenticeships, as well as non-traditional apprenticeships that may be more accessible to different populations and may speak to broader career interests. I was also excited to hear about Lawrence's comments around the importance of specific investment in reentry employment work. This year, we made a state budgetary request with a coalition of over 20 other organizations for dedicated reentry employment services. And part of that was in response to the wind down of P2E and AB 1111 that some others mentioned here today. Next slide, Carla, please. As Carla mentioned, we're a national organization. We have 30 sites across 11 states, and we serve approximately 7,000 people nationally on an annual basis. We provide service across 10 California counties, those listed on the slide. And our program model combines paid transitional employment with intensive reentry focused workforce services. And so to get a little bit more into our model, we provide immediate paid work to support stability in the crucial initial moments when someone returns home. Our goal is to reach people within those first 90 days. We provide daily pay at the end of each work shift. This helps meet immediate basic needs, as well as provides real-time reinforcement of pro-social behavior. Our participants are also provided feedback on their job performance on a daily basis. And for many of our participants, this is the first formal job they've ever had. Simultaneous to transitional employment with us, participants engage in intensive case management, including job coaching, focused on goal setting, barrier removal, as so many mentioned is crucial, supportive services, and initial workforce readiness through documentation, acquisition, resume creation, interview practice. Once participants feel ready, they work with our job developers to apply for jobs that match their needs and qualifications, very similar to how our AJCCs connect employers to job seekers. They can also access advanced training to further their qualifications. As many people have mentioned, upscaling and advanced training while also earning income is crucial to folks, especially those who traditionally been locked out or haven't been able to access the workforce to begin with. We just wrapped up our inaugural apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship training with Bitwise, where our participants engaged in 16 weeks of initial training, some of them for the first time, navigating internet browsers and email to begin working on the initial stages of coding. And they will be provided the opportunity of a one-year paid apprenticeship with Bitwise. Once our participants are placed into a job, we continue to provide case management for a year, including monetary incentives for achieving employment milestones. This is to ensure that any challenges along the way are addressed through providing ongoing support to the participants, with an additional goal of achieving long-term attachment to the labor force, as well as a reduction in recidivism. Next slide, please. In addition to our commitment to providing direct services to our participants and communities to increase racial and economic equity, as well as increasing public safety through a recidivism reduction, we work to leverage state resources and partnership and policy initiatives that reduce employment barriers. These state partnerships and policy engagements further the scope and breadth of our work and expand the impact beyond our direct services. One of our state partnerships that I'd like to highlight is our CFET contract and partnership with CDSS. This brings more federal dollars to California each year through reimbursement of the employment and training services we provide to those receiving CalFresh. We also increase the access to food security by assisting those who qualify, but who aren't currently receiving CalFresh in the application process. We've also partnered with the California workforce infrastructure across various departments to leverage our transitional employment model with workforce dollars. We have been or are current recipients of 5 Workforce Accelerator Fund projects, Forward Focus or AB 2060, Prison to Employment, AB 1111, and National Dislocated Worker Grants, which provide the additional benefit of remediating our land after natural disaster. Additionally, we've had a statewide partnership with Caltrans, as Carla mentioned, as a major employer for folks coming home for close to a decade. We provide services to clean up our communities while also Caltrans is providing transitional jobs to our participants. These crews provide employment to close to 2,000 of our folks coming home each year. Finally, to touch on some of the comments that others
Didn't I ask you nicely to get ready?
Oh. Clemente, I think there you go. Finally, we are a data and evidence-driven organization. We have undergone multiple randomized control trials to show our program demonstrates a statistically significant increase in employment acquisition as well as attachment, in addition to a reduction in recidivism. And then quickly to touch on our California service footprint, we serve around 2,400 participants annually, give or take. With COVID, it's a little bit higher when not in COVID. And we make approximately 1,000 job placements annually in California. In response to Senator Caballeri's question, we do collect data on wage increase related to training. We have consistently seen increases with each additional training, and we can provide this data if useful to the group or any individual who's interested in it. I'd like to now turn it over to Ray Crisatello from WORK, the worker-owned Recovery California. Their mission is to advance and protect worker cooperatives and other employee-owned, managed, and governed workplaces in California through advocacy, outreach, and education.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We can hop to the next slide. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Thank you for having us. My name is Ray Crisatello. I'm the Deputy Director of Research for SEIU UHW West. We're a labor union of nearly 100,000 California healthcare workers. SEIU UHW members are frontline caregivers, workers like respiratory care practitioners, dietary workers, environmental services workers, and nursing staff who aim to improve the healthcare system by providing quality care for all patients, expanding access to excellent, affordable healthcare for all Californians, and improving living wage standards for all workers. We are a member of the Work Coalition. We really appreciate the board considering an increase in the use of subsidized transitional employment within California's workforce programs. Similar to our colleagues you've already heard from today on the panel, we also support worker cooperatives, as well as worker ownership more broadly, as a pathway to a more equitable economy, especially for underpaid workers and people of color. You may have seen our two-pager in your agenda packet, which shows that more than 60% of worker cooperatives are owned by women of color and almost 60% by people of color. We also know that worker-owned corporations had faster post-recession growth from 2009 to 2011 compared to their non-worker-owned counterparts. More than 100 studies show that worker ownership is good for businesses, good for jobs, and good for local communities. It's a win-win-win. Government support for worker ownership isn't novel. The Federal Main Street Employee Ownership Act was enacted in 2018, mandating the Small Business Administration support worker ownership, prompting new and continued support in a number of states, including local jurisdictions in California. Additionally, 2018 WIOA regulations already allow for rapid response dollars to be used to fund feasibility studies for converting businesses into worker-owned as a layoff aversion strategy. If we could go to the next slide, please. Another model supported by Worker-Owned Recovery California, our coalition, is the SEIU incubated unionized worker cooperatives, which some examples I just want to highlight are in childcare, home care, and healthcare. The Trust for Workers is a perpetual non-charitable purpose trust. It's an initiative to bring the worker-centered home care model of cooperative home care associates to providers nationwide. It now employs Washington's 35,000 home care providers. It was created by 3 organizations: the Cooperative Home Care Associates, which is the worker cooperative, PHI, which is an education and training organization, and the ICA Group, which is a cooperative development firm. So they collaborated to design and administer the trust, along with development support from SEIU Local 775. The second quick example was launched in 2019 with support also from SEIU, Care Share Child Care Cooperative, which is in Ohio and connects parents and caregivers to provide childcare services. And then finally, most local and relevant to me at UHW is Allied Up, which is recently launched worker cooperative staffing agency of allied healthcare workers, organized by SEIU UHW, which grew out of my local's desire to develop a workforce model that would radically re-envision healthcare staffing in order to do a few things: create better outcomes for low-wage workers and patients, for their communities, build on the union's longstanding education and training programs that serve both union members and non-incumbent allied healthcare workers. And starting with UHW's own membership of 100,000 workers, which sits among California's $367 billion healthcare industry, we listen to the challenges of our members, which include struggles caused by growing workforce shortages, contracting out of union work, stunted career pathways, and a damaging cycle of reliance on unbenefited contingent work. So especially during the pandemic, our union leadership and members grew increasingly frustrated with the hospital and healthcare staffing industry. It's kind of typical focus that Stephen mentioned of, focusing on shareholder and executive profits over the wealth building of workers, over worker health and safety, and over patient outcomes. So we ask that today the board make a motion to provide a workforce services notice to educate about and to share the innovative models discussed today to increase the use of subsidized transitional employment under RIOA and other workforce-related programs. And on behalf of work, we really appreciate your consideration and thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, all of the panelists. This was fascinating, this topic on innovative models for transitional subsidized employment, but just the values-based approach of how dynamically you guys are approaching these issues is really fantastic. So kudos to that. Does anybody have any comments or questions for our panelists?
Angela, this is Rebecca Miller. And full disclosure is I've been intricately involved in working with SEIU to form these worker co-ops and a unionized healthcare staffing agency. So I see these, this work kind of leading on the high road partnership work to continue to try to deal with the inequities both in healthcare and in employment in healthcare. So I wanted to say that, you know, based on what Ray just said, is whether or not it would be appropriate for the board if we made a motion to support these non-traditional models for employment, and whether or not we could send out something informational to suggest that WIOA dollars could be used for these initiatives.
Sure. So our colleague, board member Rebecca Miller wants to make a motion about our state board posting an information notice to the system about transitional employment and opportunities of the new waiver. Does that accurately reflect your request?
Perfect. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
I would second it. I would like to make a friendly amendment.
Well, please feel free to propose that.
I think we should go as far as providing technical assistance on how to implement the model.
Love it.
And so Rebecca acknowledges that. So that amendment is acknowledged in the motion. Thank you, Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Any abstentions or noes or dissensions? Okay, motion carries. Thank you for that suggestion, and it's adopted. Joseph, did you have an additional comment or question you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm familiar with JVS's work. They're doing something, I believe, with the West Valley Water District out here in San Bernardino, and I followed Reddit for years. And California has a large nonprofit community. About 1 million people in California work for nonprofits. And a lot of nonprofits are social enterprises. They just don't call themselves that, or just not familiar with the terminology. And nonprofits generate about a little over $200 billion for California. And, really us promoting this with the local workforce boards as a strategy for how jobs can be created and or sustained, I think would be great. And like I said, it's going as far as actually providing some of the boards with technical assistance, because depending on the area, some of the boards might not really get it. They're not invested with the nonprofit community and don't really see it as a viable source of employment. And so anything that I think the state board can do to elevate and or actually pilot projects with these boards, I think is something that I would definitely be supportive of.
Thank you, Joseph. I think that's a really important point. Tim, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it was terrific presentations. The state board does, as was noted by CEO, we have partnerships. We fund social enterprises through a number of our initiatives, and so we're happy to get to work on that information notice. So yeah, thank you. Nice.
But to Joseph's point also, that it can include nonprofits as well, even if they don't brand themselves under that title, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would defer to Carla on that. I think that Joseph is right. I think there are a lot of organizations who are employment social enterprises that don't use the terminology of ESE. So I think we want to be all inclusive there, right, Carla?
Absolutely, yes. As I said, it's a clunky term, and you know, I think the spirit of it is, you know, as I defined it earlier, and I really appreciate Joseph's comment because it's one thing to provide employment to people; it's another to lean in on the training and support that's required so that they can, in fact, move on into high road training partnerships, et cetera. And so it's hard enough to run a nonprofit or a business. It's hard enough to run a training program. These folks are doing both together. And so the technical assistance is incredibly helpful. And I really appreciated that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Leonard Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great presentations. I think just my only comment, feedback, as far as, you know, my representation on the board is, you know, looking at workforce and you know, when you're talking about subsidized employment, and you know, even as one gentleman said, working as a you know, employee of record, you know, keep in mind that workforce development dollars and WIOA monies and federal money should not be displacing existing workers. And so I just hope that we are being conscientious when we're placing individuals into obviously our industry under construction, that, you know, we're taking that into consideration and you know, not using subsidized employment to displace existing individuals.
Thank you, Leonard. That point is well taken. John, did you still have a comment or question? John Brower. I don't think. Okay, now.
Sorry, it took me a minute there to unmute. As somebody who's been a member of two different cooperatives in their 20s and 30s, I really believe in them as a model. Our Attorney General actually sponsored some of the ESOP language, and Tim, I would encourage maybe a conversation with Mr. Bonta around maybe there are resources on his end to help grow some of that aspect of it, and we'll just make that as a suggestion that maybe there's a partnership there with the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, thanks, John.
In particular piece. So.
Little known fact, we owe funding for dislocated workers can support the development of employee-owned enterprises. So it's something that we want to put some more information out on and encourage local workforce boards to be looking at that, because I think that's a really great opportunity to expand this work.
Thank you for all those comments and questions. And again, just really want to commend the fantastic. Oh, Sarah, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing of note regarding reentry population. We absolutely love to leverage WIOA dollars where we can, just recognizing that from our statistical analysis, anywhere from 45 to 50% of our participants are prohibited from accessing WIOA funding because of the failure to register for selective service during the age required. So it's a really big barrier for us when WIOA funding is the leveraged funding.
Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, we will now, were there any public comments submitted to these specific items before we proceed? Clemente?
We do have 2 new comments not specific to that item.
Okay, we'll save that for the general public comments then. We're going on to other business, and I want to acknowledge that our colleague, Joseph Williams, had requested about establishing a youth committee for our board. Pradeep and Marissa, can you provide an update on how that's coming along?
This is Pradeep. We've after we had a conversation with Member Williams, we had an internal meeting with and also from a staff from the agency to talk about how we should proceed forward. And one of the things we decided was to have a short survey to the local workforce boards to sort of get a lay of the landscape, both in terms of quantitative as well as qualitative information, but just get an idea In addition to that, as we were reviewing both the regional and local plans, I asked the staff that were reviewing that, including myself, to sort of look at local boards that are active in focusing on youth, although that's a requirement under WIOA, but just to see if there were any best practices in there. We also are trying to look at how we can extract data from CalJobs, because one of the issues that we have is because of co-enrollment, we can't exactly extract just youth because they're in different programs. So we have to come up with different strategies of doing that in terms of extracting. And so we're just starting the Travis Baker, who's going to be working on that, is finishing up the P2E and AB 1111 report, and will then move forward to working on the survey and other materials, and we'll be able to present information to you at the next board meeting.
Thank you for that update, Pradeep. Joseph, is there anything you want to add?
Wait, so just for context for the board, the recommendation was that we establish a committee at the board level that would be responsible for providing guidance and advice to the full board on the state strategy for youth workforce services. If you think about the hundreds of millions of youth dollars that come into the state workforce board, we're identifying it as a gap that we need some strategic thinking around youth services, and what guidance is provided to the local boards. And I'm supportive of the staff's recommendation to survey. But again, looking for the board to, with Tim's support, to eventually establish a committee that would advise the full board on youth services.
Thank you, Joseph, and I appreciate our staff for continuing to move that process along. And so our next two board meetings are scheduled for August 25th and November 17th. We'll let you know if we're able to do those in person. Hopefully we will. Our last section is our general public comments. Clemente, if we have those two, or if there's additional questions or comments that have been submitted.
Yes, the first one has to do with EDD unemployment benefits. And I'll just read the comment from Kenneth Williams. And it reads, in the subject line, EDD phone lines, website question portal, and appeals department, unreachable, unresponsive. The EDD service lines are unreachable and the online contact question portal unresponsive. I have submitted certifications for the extended PUA benefits for each week since February 2021 and have not received a single payment. My online claim history shows each week in pending status. I have not received any notifications of why payments are pending or any request for additional information. I previously had to use the appeals process to reserve a denial for PEUC benefits. I sent a second appeal when the next tier of extended benefits were denied, but never received an appeals hearing. The last time I was able to reach an EDD specialist via telephone was on April 8th, and she said she resolved the situation and I received a determination of eligibility. I started to receive and submit certification forms. When it became evident that payments were being held, I made hundreds of attempts to reach EDD via telephone and 3 attempts via the online questions portal, to no avail. In desperation, I sent an appeal on May 19th, 2021, but never received a hearing date or any acknowledgement to that appeal was processed. I have continued to call EDD line, but after listening to almost 2 minutes of recording, I am routed to the recording that says I need to call back later. At age 64, I am experiencing more roadblocks than I expected in securing new employment. I'm desperate to reach someone at EDD who can help me resolve the situation. Thank you, Kenneth Williams. And he has an attachment with the May 19th appeal with supporting documentations and attachment.
Okay, thank you, Clemente. We do not have jurisdiction over EDD, but they are represented on our board. We will pass this along the appropriate protocols for Kenneth. Thank you for sharing that. Is there any other public comments?
The second comment comes from Regina Williams, who also had a previous comment. Her subject line reads, general public comment. Thank you for the board and staff for all you do, especially through these uncertain times. This was the first time attending the California Workforce Development Board meeting. I am appreciative of the efforts made to publish your meetings online. I am, however, concerned that your meeting format is not set up in a way that best includes the public's voice. The current meeting structure does not facilitate good interaction with the public. I would highly encourage you to follow a model that allows the public to engage, much like hosting physical meetings. Item 1, allow the public to comment in Zoom. If you're worried about Zoom hackers, there are tools that will allow you to control that from happening. Item 2, you can stream on YouTube, but requiring the public to log into YouTube empowers YouTube to continue to data mine the public while they know everything about that. As a member of the public, I don't appreciate contributing to this practice. Thank you, Regina Williams with the African American Community Empowerment Council.
Okay, thank you, Clemente, for sharing that. And, we definitely need to look at our best practices on, to ensure that our public feels that their input is, valued and shared, so staff can follow up on that. Are there any other comments or questions before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion, please.
Motion to adjourn, Jamil.
Motion by Jamil.
Second.
Yan, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, no abstentions or nays. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. This is really important information, and take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.
Meeting is adjourned at 1:16.